sports.
We are Baltimore. We are Ohio.
The Indians took Game 1 of this series in dramatic fashion thanks to Michael Brantley. But Mother Nature took over the last two nights, wiping out both games and a lot of momentum for the Tribe. So let's play two, and two very important games for the Indians as they try to sneak up on the American League wild card leaders. Cody Anderson was brilliant against the Tigers in his last start, and he will set the tone for a Sunday full of baseball. How do you do? Next on Sports Time Ohio. Well, after back-to-back rainouts, the stormy skies have given way to blue skies and sunshine in downtown Cleveland as the Indians take on the Detroit Tigers in a good old-fashioned twin bill. Hi again, everyone. Matt Underwood alongside Jensen Lewis, who's in for Rick Manning here this afternoon. Jensen, you look at where the Indians are at right now. Well, after back-to-back rainouts, the stormy skies have given way to blue skies and sunshine in downtown Cleveland as the Indians take on the Detroit Tigers in a good old-fashioned twin bill. Hi again, everyone. Matt Underwood alongside Jensen Lewis, who's in for Rick Manning here this afternoon. Jensen, you look at where the Indians are at right now, still alive in the wild card race, and it's the September 13th. And I think the big reason why they're still here is because of Michael Brantley, who continues to be the catalyst for this offense.
Well, and it's really how he's done since the All-Star break. And you know, look at the top of this lineup. Obviously, Jason Kipnis, since he's moved to leadoff spot, has been key. Francisco Lindor in between them. But when you have a guy that's putting up MVP-type numbers, at least from the All-Star break on, you're right, Matty. This is a reason why the Indians should be very hopeful and should continue to have a lot of confidence going through to try and get this wild card.
Well, you look at the wild card standings. Indians got some help last night. Both Minnesota and Texas lost. Even though the Indians haven't played the last two games, they're still sitting just 4 games back of the Rangers in a wild card race. All right, so when you talk about the Indians right now, you're looking at Cody Anderson, who gets the ball today for the Tribe. And, starting pitching has obviously been very important. And for Cody Anderson, ever since he's come back to the ball club, his last 3 starts, he's given up 3 hits or less each time out.
And I think most of it has been the fastball command, but his changeup is his calling card. It's been one of his better out pitches. And as we've seen here in a short sample size, when he's able to change speeds, he's going to have a lot of success. Now, remember, he started against Tampa Bay his first 2 starts back-to-back. He will face Detroit now for the second time in the same fashion. For me today, it's going to be that changeup. Is he going to be able to do that early in the lineup and really to the middle of this order with Miguel Cabrera and J.D. Martinez?
And, of course, a familiar foe on the bump for Detroit, Justin Verlander, gets the start for the Tigers. So what have the Indians been doing for the last 2 games? With all the rain delays sitting around, no baseball. When we come back, Andre Knott will join us to let us know what the Tribe's been up to while we've been waiting to play baseball. Cleveland Indians baseball is brought to you by W.B. Mason, the official office supplier of the Cleveland Indians. By McDonald's, I'm loving it. By your local Toyota dealers. Visit buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. And by the injury lawyers at Elk & Elk, proud sponsors of the Cleveland Indians. Call 1-800-ELK, Ohio. gone to Souvenir City. Brantley liftoff. Deep center field. Back is goes. Goodbye! Lindor takes off. Brantley drives it. Deep right field. He's done it again. The 2-2. Oh, he rung him up with a breaking ball, and the game is over. Ooh, things are getting interesting as we go down the stretch. Interesting indeed. The Indians with a win today could get back to the 500 mark. They've won 11 out of their last 14 overall. They come in 69-70 on the year. Cody Anderson will go for the Tribe. Justin Verlander going for Detroit. Big story, though, is how do the players bounce back after sitting for the last 2 days, waiting for the rain to stop. Let's go down to Andre Nadeau more on what they've been doing to stay busy.
Well, Matt, there's been a lot of playing of cards and a lot of hoverboarding, if you know what that is. You got to be of the younger generation. A lot of guys, they've been here. They've been playing around. They've been amongst each other. But, you know, Terry Francona said something this morning that I thought stood out. He goes, look, we're in the middle of September. He goes, we've played over 130-some ball games. He goes, this is probably a godsend for our ball club. He goes, the guys have come here every day. They've hit in the cages. They've been able to throw. He goes, we just haven't played games. Now, if this was April, it'd be a little bit more of a worry. The other thing that he takes as a positive for this, says guys like Lindor, guys like Brantley, guys like Kipnis that play every day, they've got a couple days where they'll be able to give their body a rest, and he hopes that's a good push for them through the rest of the season. The other good thing out of this, Cody Allen and Brian Shaw haven't pitched in 3 days. That's a big thing for the Indians right now as they try to make this run.
Well, Jensen, as you know, there's a fine balancing act every manager goes through between getting enough work and getting too much work in.
Yeah, and one thing you think about, especially with it being in September and in the midst of the wild card race, how do you keep your focus? How do you keep your edge? You and I were talking about it. You look at a team like Kansas City, they're ahead by so much, so they could benefit from a couple days off. But I think the Indians as well, you think about all the games they've played in a row, a big, brutal road trip they came off. They did very well there. But now it's okay. They've come home. They've played well here as of late. Keep your edge. Keep doing the little things, but stay in the moment. Don't look too far ahead.
Cody Anderson will chuck it for Cleveland today. Let's take a look at the starting lineup he will face for Brad Ausmus and the Tigers. It's brought to you by Toyota. Anthony Goes leads it off. Then it's Ian Kinsler, followed by Miguel Cabrera. J.D. Martinez in the cleanup spot. Victor Martinez will DH, then Nick Castellanos. Stephen Moya will get the start in left field. He'll bat 7th. Big kid with power. James McCann hitting 8th, and Dixon Machado bats 9th.
Your Northern Ohio starting pitcher today, Cody Anderson. And, Matty, we talked about this a lot, how he has developed and really matured with only a little bit of time at AAA. I think the changeup, especially having faced Detroit, his previous start, now coming in again, the fastball come in, but that changeup, that's going to be the big key today. Your Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram defense setting the table for the Indians around the corner here. Jose Ramirez will be at third, Francisco Lindor at short, Jason Kipnis at second, Chris Johnson getting the start at first base, Michael Brantley in left, Abraham Almonte in center, Lonnie Chisenhall, big defensive effort from him the last time the Indians played on Thursday. Will be in right. Jan Gomes behind the dish will be calling it for Cody Anderson today.
Paul Nauert will be behind the plate. He'll act as the crew chief. Toby Bassner is at first base. Mike Estabrook at second. Ed Hickox is down at third. And we are ready to go.
A little bit different today. No rain.
Yeah.
Go figure.
It's been quite soggy the last 2 nights here at Progressive Field. Yesterday was just bizarre with that lake effect swirling rain. It just never moved out of here all night long. But it's given way to beautiful conditions here in downtown Cleveland as Cody Anderson winds it up. And we're underway. Goes, swings, and fouls it back. Anthony Goes was 1 for 3 the other night on the series opener. He did have a run batted in. Fly ball left center. Could be trouble. It's in the gap. It'll get down. Brantley will cut it off. But Goes flies into second base with a leadoff double.
Take a look at this location right here. A fastball. I mean, goes down and gets it.
This is going to be something you got to watch for, especially with his speed and his ability to create some chaos on the base paths. Not a good guy to have on, especially with Kinsler and Cabrera coming. Numbers on Cody Anderson with runners on, batting average against .311. So today, obviously, a very big key. Got to make some good pitches down in the zone, especially guys like Kinsler and Cabrera in the middle of the order.
Well, the Tigers have been lethal early in games. As Kinsler rockets one into right field. Cut off by Chisenhall, but not before Goes comes around to score. And the Tigers will play from in front. 2 batters in. They lead it 1-0. The only inning this year in which the Tigers have outscored their opposition is in the first.
Well, fastball belt high. Kinsler does what he's been doing his entire career. Very good opposite field approach. And they're going to be aggressive today. I mean, this is a good approach against Cody Anderson if you're Detroit. You know he's a young guy that's going to try and get ahead early. 2 pitches that he's made mistakes on, he's paid for it.
Miguel Cabrera will step in with Kinsler at first. And he hits a double play ball to short. Lindor to Kipnis on to first. 2 down. Our keys to the game brought to you by Wayside Furniture. Indians looking to run their streak to 14 games in a row at home in which they collect 10 hits or more. And obviously for Cody Anderson, the execution of his pitches will be critical. He doesn't have a blow-you-away fastball, doesn't have a wipe-out breaking ball, so he's got to really be pinpoint with his command, doesn't he?
And really on the edges, I think, Matt. If he's able to do that, he's going to have a lot of success.
There's a good pitch on the corner to J.D. Martinez. And this is one of those guys you can't miss in the middle of the plate, too. He's hit 36 home runs this year.
And if you were to raise your hand and say, I know who's going to lead the Tigers in home runs, and you said J.D. Martinez.
I mean, you look back last year what Victor did, what Miguel Cabrera does every year. And I think a lot of people looked at J.D. Martinez and said, you know what? He just benefited from having those guys around him, and maybe that's why he's put up these kind of numbers. He's hit 59 home runs in his first 2 years with the Tigers.
Wow.
He's put himself on a very short list of guys who've done that. But Brad Ausmus says, you know what? I think hogwash on a lot of that. He said, I don't buy into where a guy hits, who's in front of him, behind him. You still have to do your job when you step into the box. And Martinez has produced.
And this is a guy, too, that had, Yoenis Cespedes batting behind him for most of the season. But it's his approach. Remember, this is a guy that got cut from Houston. I mean, how would he look in that lineup, too?
Lines this one right back up the gut. 3 of the first 4 Tigers with hits in the ballgame. And a 2-out single keeps the inning alive for Victor Martinez.
Again, location on this pitch, it's down, but Martinez goes and gets it. And when you're going good, Matty, we've seen this a lot, especially with Detroit. These guys in the middle of the lineup, they can take advantage of mistakes. Again, not a bad pitch, but still too much of the plate.
Yeah. You could see Yan Gomes on that camera angle from behind the plate. He's set up away, and he had a leak back over the heart of the plate, and that's not where Cody wants to be today. Victor Martinez looks at a ball down low. Watch the setup for Gomes. Watch where the pitch ends up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it creeps back over the middle, and that's a good piece of hitting right there.
That caught the outside corner, much to the chagrin of Victor Martinez. And the count is 1-1 with 2 down and a runner at first here in the opening frame. Couple of shakeoffs. Popped out a plate on the left side. And Cody Anderson gets ahead 1-2.
I always remember Victor Martinez would play RBI baseball against him in the clubhouse. And it always seemed like he was hitting in a video game in real life, too, having to face him when he was with Boston. What an incredible, incredible athlete. This late in his career, he's still doing what he's doing. Remember Victor Jr., too. He's probably better than a lot of these hitters, too.
The 1-2 coming to Victor. The thing about Martinez is that he's playing on a left knee that's can't be 100%. I mean, I know very few guys are 100% at any point during the season, but he had knee surgery in February, opened the season, but then in May went down, missed a month, and you just wonder how his knees have hampered his ability to drive the ball consistently, because he's hitting 236 on the year. We know that's not normal for Victor Martinez. Mm-hmm. So that probably has played a role. To what extent is anybody's guess. But the thing that we've noticed is that for him to go down and get the pitch, that's where he's really susceptible.
Mm-hmm. And he's always been a guy, and this is probably true for a lot of these middle of the order type bats. If you're able to stand him up and then be able to go down and away with something soft, you can have a lot of success.
Fly ball right field. Lonnie Chisenhall is there. And that will end the inning. Tigers get a run on 3 hits, 1 man left. The Indians are coming to bat. Francona, the Indians starting lineup today looks like this. It's brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Jason Kipnis in the leadoff spot. Francisco Lindor bats second. Michael Brantley batting third. Couple of home runs the other night. Carlos Santana, Lonnie Chisenhall, Yan Gomes. Then it's Abraham Almonte, Chris Johnson, and Jose Ramirez.
And today's Northern Ohio Honda starting pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, Justin Verlander. And look at the numbers on this season. Remember, he was coming off injury, but he has gotten back to the old Verlander. That big power curveball, fastballs back up into the mid-90s for the Indians hitters today. I think take the same approach that Detroit has against Cody Anderson, get that good first fastball, and take advantage.
Verlander's first pitch, a little bit low, ball 1. Jason Kipnis was 0 for 4 the other night in the series opener. Caught the corner. Kipnis on the year has batted .343 against right-handed pitching. And he smokes this one toward left field over near the line. Moya will make the catch just inside the line for out number 1.
Tigers defense brought to you by Ram. It's an interesting setup today. Steven Moya, the rookie, in left field. Anthony Gose in center. J.D. Martinez in right. Around the infield, Nick Castellanos at third. Dixon Machado at shortstop. Ian Kinsler at second. Miguel Cabrera at first. And McCann behind the dish, calling pitches for Justin Verlander today. You know what, Matty, I've really liked how McCann has taken over. Obviously, Alex Avila has been the mainstay back there, but good young guy. If he can get his bat to come around a little bit, I think the Tigers have a nice little find.
Well, today he's trying to work Justin Verlander through the ball game. Verlander had his issues. He had right tricep soreness back in March, and that knocked him out for the first 2.5 months. Swinging bunt attempt by Lindor comes up empty. And so for Verlander, he's sort of been playing catch-up. But, you know, you think back to all the postseason innings he's logged over the years. He's probably stronger maybe now at this point in the season than he normally would be.
Yeah, having a little bit of rest, too. And this is a guy that takes a lot of pride in his work ethic. But I think the one thing for Verlander that has always stood out, he is going to challenge you. And no matter what kind of stuff he has for the day, he feels he can beat you no matter what. So for the Indians today, take advantage of those early fastballs because he gets that big breaking ball. Boy, it could be a long afternoon.
Weekly tapped up the first base line. Verlander's there, and he'll apply the tag. 1-2 down. Our window system's game time temperature 63 degrees under sunny skies. Pretty good breeze, though, blowing from the left field foul pole toward the right field corner. I have to say, unseasonably cool at 63, especially with that 23-mile-an-hour wind blowing.
Sure is.
And up comes Michael Brantley with 2 down on the bases empty. Indians down a run. Brantley did something Thursday night that no Cleveland Indian has done since at least 1940. He hit 2 home runs to give the Indians the lead, once in the 7th and then once in the 8th. Both of them were 2-run homers. No, I'm sorry. The first one was a solo shot. The second one was a 2-run homer. This is a line drive right into the glove of Kinsler, and the Tribe goes 1-2-3. We have a Tigers lead of 1-0 after an inning. Tigers have a 1-0 lead as we go to the second, and it will be Nick Castellanos, Stephen Moya, and James McCann due up. Castellanos 1 for 4, double and an RBI on Thursday night. Sends the first pitch right at Jason Kipnis. And Johnson will apply the tag after he came off the bag, 1 away.
I think the secret's out about what they're going to do today.
Get after him early. Let's go down to Andre Naidoo, who has more on Cody.
You know, Cody Anderson talks about the relationship he and Josh Tomlin have kind of formed over the last few weeks. You'd think they're fighting for the same time, but he says, you know what, our stuff is a lot alike. He goes, we don't throw like these other guys in the starting rotation. He says the one thing he learned about going against Detroit from Tomlin, he goes, you got to attack these guys in, out, up, and down. And he goes, the other secret that he was told from Tomlin, he goes, when the guy that bats third comes up, he goes, just act like there's no batter up there. Just seriously, just go up there and pitch. He goes, don't look at Cabrera, just pitch to him.
Well, so far so good. He got Cabrera to hit into a double play in the first. Now he's got another big stick standing in against him. Steven Moya, left-handed batter. And he is all kind of big at 6'6". And at AAA this year, he hit 20 home runs, 74 runs batted in. But he struck out 162 times in 126 games.
Big guy with a big swing. Get up under those hands. Nice job by Cody right there.
Diving stop by Kipnis, but he couldn't get the handle as he got to his feet. And Moya has an infield single.
Good pitch location from Anderson right here, and great effort by Kipnis. Nice diving stop. Just didn't get the grip on it, and Moya is on with a leadoff single.
Probably a good idea to not throw this if you don't have the right grip, because you don't want it to go sideways and end up in the seats somewhere. So runner at first with one out for James McCann, Tigers catcher. He was 2 for 3 on Thursday night. Takes ball one.
Good thing for Cody right here. Continue to pepper the edges. I think the changeup could work really well with McCann. Good double play candidate. Unlucky there with Moya, but I think he's looked very good as far as the fastball, and obviously Detroit trying to get after him by swinging early.
Threw it by him. Good fastball, and it's a 1-ball, 1-strike count.
We mentioned Detroit's aggressiveness. In the first inning, they saw 15 pitches. They swung at 10 of them.
Yeah, they had their game. Well, they just saw them a week ago, so I'm sure that's fresh in their mind. Plus, whatever they decided to do collectively from a scouting report standpoint. Fouled right back.
I like how Gomes is calling it so far. Obviously, Detroit, they're taking advantage because, as we said, Cody's going to pitch to contact. But I like the sequencing so far. He's staying aggressive, even with that approach that they've seen from Detroit. And hopefully, gets a ground ball right here.
Now the 1-2. Toss to first, keeping Moya close. Look how much bigger he is than Chris Johnson. And Chris is no small fry, mind you.
No kidding. Put him at middle linebacker. Lions will take him.
Power forward. Now the 1-2. And a foul right back.
You heard Andre talk about how Josh Tomlin helping Cody Anderson out. And the numbers bear it out. His last 3 starts, 1-0 with a 2.08 ERA. Pitching into the 6th inning. All 3 of those starts. But I think also, too, this is probably something that's helped. He pitched against Tampa his first 2 starts, a home and away. And now he's got Detroit. But, again, a much different lineup he's facing today.
Now the 1-2. Well, you look at Cody's last few starts. Detroit, Toronto, Milwaukee. He's already given up more hits today than he did in either of those 3 starts.
Well, we knew they were going to be aggressive, especially a doubleheader day. That first game, you want to get that. You want to get the sticks out early for sure.
The 2-2, hammered to left, and Brantley has to short hop it. Moya stops at second, and back-to-back one-out singles for Detroit here in the 2nd inning. Already 5 hits for the Tigers.
Changeup that he missed over the heart of the plate up. McCann takes advantage of it. Those are the kind of mistakes, especially as a young starting pitcher, you're going to pay for. That's the difference between AAA and the big leagues. You might get away with some of those pitches down in Columbus. They're going to make you pay for it here all day long.
Dixon Machado will be the batter. Two on, one out. Machado spent most of the year at AAA. He's hit just .217 in the 9 games he's played so far at the big league level. Out of play right side.
A lot of early swings.
Yeah, they are
a
not
lot
waiting.
of early swings. It makes sense. It makes sense against a guy that you know is going to be in and around the zone. You know he's going to make some good pitches. They're not messing around.
That fastball is out of play. So after a couple of foul balls, it's 0-2 on Machado.
5 swings at the first pitch already. And he's peppering the zone.
Yeah.
22 strikes out of 27 pitches. But again, we talked about this. This is going to be the approach, especially with a veteran lineup. They know you're going to be in and around there, and they're not going to wait.
He's looking for that ground ball here. And Machado lays off a low pitch.
This will be critical for him, especially at the bottom of the order. You don't want to turn it over and have Kinsler and Cabrera with guys on base. Got to limit the damage right here.
Anthony Goes waits next. Swung on and missed. He tied him up. Gets his first strikeout. Our Circle K strikeout. Almost looked like a sinker fastball right there.
Good movement here, well executed. This is a tough pitch for any right-hander to handle, but especially in that situation. You're looking for a ground ball. You want to tie him up. Great job by Cody.
So with 2 down, we'll go to the top of the order, and Anthony Goes cups and misses.
Talked about it at the open. That changeup, that's going to be a difference maker for him today. Really good one right there.
Good block by Yan Gomes.
I like that, doubling up. Good first one right there, especially with guys on base trying to keep it, on the ground. Pitching backwards, though. Second time around the order here. Let's see how he changes things up.
Weekly tapped and it's foul. If anything, Jensen, and I don't know how this worked when you were pitching, but a lot of times it seems like with Cody Anderson, whatever Yan Gomes puts down, he says, okay, yes, sir, let's go.
There's a lot of trust, but that goes for the entire staff, I think, and Gomer has really worked hard in his day-to-day preparation. That's something he takes a lot of pride in. And when you have that ability, I remember with Victor. Victor was the same way. When I was a rookie, you just trusted what he put down because you knew that he put all that preparation time in to make it easy on you.
Now the 1-2. Oh, almost had him frozen, but just missed.
Wow. 94. This is something that I think, too, he's got another gear. He can kind of reach back a little bit, and that'll sneak up on him. Look at this location. You see where Gomer wants it. That's a good miss, though, right there. Kind of, get in on him a little bit. Now let's see if he goes
Good miss,
away.
but are you worried that he's missing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We'll see what he does right here. Yeah, good idea.
Low and away, full count. Went to the changeup, couldn't get him to chase after it. So the runners will be moving.
Won't be surprised if he throws another one right here.
I guess that's one thing. If you're missing and you're missing out of the zone, you can work with that. It's when you miss and you miss fat part of the plate. That's when it's a short
And
day.
those are good misses, almost like you're setting yourself up for another pitch that you want to go to. And I think when you saw the changeup 2-2, wouldn't be surprised if he does it again.
Steven Moya, who can take about 2 steps and be at third base, will be off at second, and McCann, the catcher, will take off at first. And a foul out of play.
Do not want to load the bases for Kinsler. Don't want to do it. I like his attack here. I like his mindset. He may come in on him.
Well, we shall see. Anderson checks the runner at second and fires. And it's out of play again. He's going right at him. As you pointed out, he doesn't want to end up in a bases loaded situation. Ian Kinsler waiting.
Yeah, and Ghost is a guy that you can beat. You can beat him in, and I think that's where Gomer's thinking right here is, you sped him up a little bit with a changeup, and now you had some fastballs and see where his swing is. Let's see what he does right here.
There's the payoff. Turn to second, but nothing doing. People always think that's such a wasted move, but I don't mind it with a 3-2 count and 2 outs because you never know if a guy might just fall asleep and just take off, and you end up getting a cheap out and then you're out of the inning.
And more, you want to give your defense, an ability to throw him out if there's a base hit.
Another foul back. Goes staying on at 94-mile-an-hour fastball. Look at this. 8 pitches already for Goes.
He's seen the full arsenal, too. And this is going to be an execution at bat now for Cody Anderson. Ghost knows what he's coming with. It's just a matter of, can you hit your spots? Might be a shake fastball here.
Bouncing ball towards second base. Kipnis throws him out. Great job by Cody Anderson to get out of trouble. It stays 1-0 Detroit, middle of the second.
Cody Anderson has given up, and Matty, as you mentioned, he's given up more hits already. Was it past 2 or 3 starts?
Past 3 starts, he had not allowed more than 3 hits. We'll see if the Indians can get the bats going here in the second against Verlander. He set him down 1-2-3 in the first. Carlos Santana will lead it off. Big curveball misses up high.
I know a lot of people have been upset with Carlos Santana, at least from an average standpoint, and don't think he swings enough. But you think about this guy since 2011, he's been first or second on the team in homers and RBIs. And the average obviously will not speak to it, but this is still a guy that does a lot of damage. I know Tito has talked about, from the right side, it's kind of been an anomaly that he's only had, one home run, I think?
Well, the thing, too, that is interesting is that he has been one of their best 2-out RBI men.
Mm-hmm. And we know what Brantley's done, obviously, with runners in the scoring position, but this is a guy, too, that he's been getting the job done, especially down the stretch.
Yeah, for Santana, 14 out of his 15 homers have come from the left side of the plate. And he's taken Verlander deep 6 times.
Wow.
Now the 3-1. He seems to have really been a lot better, I'd say, over the last month when it comes to picking his spots. So if it's an RBI situation, he's not as picky.
Right.
And right now, he might take a walk if he doesn't get exactly what he's looking for. Grounds it right into the teeth of the shift, and Ian Kinsler from the outfield grass takes care of Santana one away.
A guy that he used to be like Manny Ramirez, would always wait for his pitch, and that's what Santana's done as of late. Get live Indians baseball all season long with MLB.com at bat on your smartphone or tablet. Staying connected with live radio broadcasts, stats, breaking news, and more. Download MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball.
One down for Lonnie Chisenhall. And he fouls the first pitch back out of play.
And back to Manny, this is a guy that obviously one of the best right-handed hitters in history, but he would wait for his pitch. I mean, if you threw him 3 fastballs in the outside corner, he wasn't looking at it, he'd turn around and walk to the dugout. It was so disciplined, and I think that's what Carlos Santana has kind of done. Again, he's not in that Manny Ramirez category, but as far as the approach goes, I think a lot of people don't give him enough credit for his selectivity.
Lonnie Chisenhall fouls one into the glove of McCann, and he's in the hole 1-2. Swung out and missed. Boy, that was a nasty breaking ball from Verlander. It's his first strikeout, 2 down.
That's been the difference for him, I think, since coming back from that injury and really his resurgence. Take a look at this. Oof. Dark one right there. And it's right off the top of his fastball. There's no hump in it, and that's so difficult as a hitter to be able to pick that up, especially got a guy throwing 94, 95 miles an hour. He drops a 79-mile-an-hour hammer on you right there.
Now here's Yan Gomes. Yeah, I don't know if it gives Verlander any more of an advantage that he's been sitting on this lineup for 3 days, knowing that he's going to be facing him. He's been maybe playing the game over in his mind, thinking about different hitters, certain counts.
Well, remember, Verlander has always had good success, against the Indians overall. There's been spurts where they've touched him up pretty good.
Machado throws out Gomes, 6 up, 6 down. Through 2, it's the Tigers 1, the Indians nothing. And catch a game at the new Corner Bar, open to all fans at Progressive Field. $13 district tickets presented by Sports Time Ohio are going quickly, so get yours today. Tickets available only at Indians.com/district ticket.
Place is unbelievable. I'm telling you, we've had a lot of good crowds down there for, the pregame show, and man, when the Cavs in the playoffs, I mean, they couldn't kick anybody out of here.
Well, at least they're dried out a little more today.
Mm-hmm.
Last couple of nights been tough sledding for the fans here at Progressive Field. Ian Kinsler drove in the only run of the game in the first with a base hit that plated Anthony Goes. Right back to Anderson, and Cody with the underhand flip.
Wow.
One away.
Run it over there, kid.
Our AT&T U-verse rewind in that first inning. Detroit came out aggressively and got 3 hits on the board, playing a run against Cody Anderson.
A lot of fastballs, too, and really you saw early what their idea was, and knowing that Cody was going to be in and around the strike zone, they took advantage of it. But again, when you leave fastballs up in the big leagues, it doesn't matter who's up there. They're going to take advantage of it.
Miguel Cabrera bounced into that double play in the first. A little bit low, ball 1. Might have been the same pitch he swung at his first time up.
And they have handled Miggy really well, especially that series in Detroit. First night here.
His first 11 games against the Indians this year, he was 26 for 42. That's a .619 batting average.
Wow.
Since then, he's 2 for 17.
I think a lot of it has to do, you see the pitch right there, standing him up, making him feel uncomfortable, because he was getting his hands extended really well. And I think also, too, he was in some hitter-friendly counts. But with most power hitters, you have got to be able to get in with a fastball.
Out of play. Breaking ball missed outside.
Got to be careful here. Got to be really careful here. Don't want to give up a solo homer by just trying to put something over the plate. Let's see what happens.
Went upstairs with a fastball and could not get Cabrera to bite, so he'll take the 1-out walk. And it will bring up J.D. Martinez. He singled right up the gut his first time up.
He is gonna be a guy that I think in this offseason you wonder, with free agency, Detroit is going to spend money to revamp this rotation because they're going to need to. But next year you've got Verlander at $28 million. You've got Miguel Cabrera at $28 million. You got to think where else are they going to be able to afford some options? You wonder with Martinez's season like this if they don't try and lock him up.
Well, you do wonder. As Martinez bounces one to short, Lindor goes to second. There's one. Kipnis can't get it out of his glove. And so there are 2 down, and J.D. Martinez is down at first. I'm not sure he would have been able to turn it anyway.
Yeah, this is tough. You think about how deep Lindor had to go in the hole. It's a good feed, but this is trouble on the timing right here. There's probably just looking over there thinking, okay, we'll just eat it. And 2 down now. Kip's been really good, though, defensively. And getting back from that oblique injury, I think, helped him a lot. I don't think he gets enough credit for the work that he puts in defensively. He's not a guy that you probably look at on paper and say, well, he's going to just wow you defensively. But he's done a really good job this year.
Getting back to your point about J.D. Martinez, they've got pretty considerable financial investments going forward in Miguel Cabrera at $20+ million, Justin Verlander at $20+ million, Victor Martinez, Anibal Sanchez. I'm sure there are some others too. You just wonder, I mean, how much more can they continue to extend themselves?
And the bullpen has been a big issue. It's been a big issue for them. Do they have an in-house option with Bruce Rondon? He's been hurt. And Joakim Soria, a guy that obviously had a lot of good years in Kansas City. He's had injury problems. They're going to have to they're going to have to be creative. And you know that the Ilitch family, they're not afraid to spend some money. But you're right. You wonder where the tab stops.
A little bit outside. And, of course, the big story the last couple of days is concerning the manager, Brad Ausmus, who, according to various printed reports out of Detroit and broadcast reports out of Detroit, everything's pointing towards him being fired at season's end. Swung on and missed. It's 2-2.
With Dombrowski leaving and Al Avila now taking over, you would think he wants to have his guy in place. You'd see the numbers with Ausmus just a bit above 500. But you also have to give him some credit, too. I mean, when you trade away David Price and you trade away Yoenis Cespedes, I mean, those are two big reasons why Detroit has been so good. Those are always, I mean, that's very tough to overcome.
Now the 2-2. Not to mention Soria, one of those key pieces in the bullpen. They weaken all three areas of their team, their rotation, the lineup, bullpen. But Brad Ausmus said, with regards to all the rumors swirling around him, because nobody from the front office has told him anything other than everybody's being evaluated.
Right.
And he said, quote, "I love anonymous sources. They don't have the spine to put their name next to their words." Now the 2-2. Bounce toward first, but that's going to go foul.
I don't think, you and I, we talked way back in the offseason. Minnesota was going to be a surprise team. We thought Detroit, that's the team to beat. Obviously, they've won the past four, AL Central Division titles.
There's former Tigers manager Jim Leyland working with the organization, probably helping to evaluate everything. Al Avila now taking over as general manager. Victor pops one sky high on the infield. And Jose Ramirez will make the catch to end the inning. Middle of the third. It remains Detroit 1, Cleveland 0. Game for Miller Time, brought to you by Miller Lite. 1-0 Detroit. Bottom third of the Indians' order due up here. Abraham Almonte, Chris Johnson, and Jose Ramirez due up.
How impressed have you been with Almonte?
Very. We talked about this the other night. The one thing you notice about him is that in center field, he covers a lot of ground, seems to get good jumps on the ball, good routes. I don't think he ever misses a cutoff man, so he does his job fundamentally really sound in the outfield. But offensively, he's done a little bit of everything. I mean, he's jolted a few out of here with 4 homers, 5 triples already. And what I like about him, too, is the ability to use the bat and bunt his way on from time to time.
He had a great bunt for a base hit Thursday, just bringing it with him. What I've liked, too, he can hit a fastball. He does not miss.
Now the 0-2. And a high fastball got him.
Now it makes me look bad.
Go down to Andre with more on Almonte.
Get used to that, Jensen. I'm trying. No, the one thing about Almonte, I agree with Matt on the defense that he's played. It's been fun to watch him. Hits all the cutoff guys. But he's admitted to me and to Terry Francona, he's still not comfortable running to right center field. So it just doesn't have a feel in this ballpark yet of where the wall is and how he can play it with the bullpen. So Lonnie Chisenhall's helped him out tremendously with that. But Lonnie hasn't been out there that long either.
Yeah, you've got a couple of guys out there still kind of getting their feet wet and learning some of the nuances. We noticed Andre, I think it was in New York when he went back on a ball. He wasn't real sure where he was at on the field, and some of these parks probably getting used to as well. No balls, 2 strikes.
Andre, we heard Tito talk about Almonte and his attention to detail, and really just he's a cerebral player. I mean, you wouldn't know it if you don't talk to him a lot or if you just kind of watch him. But it is, as Manny said, he doesn't miss a cutoff man. He can hit a fastball. He's really been a surprise. You think you trade Mark Zubczynski away and a deadline deal, you get Almonte, and I mean, the early returns, you have to be impressed.
No, it is impressive. I think the thing, and we talked about this, I think, the last time we had a game. Matty, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, Kinsler's going to take care of Chris Johnson, 2 quick outs.
But we talked about the other night, with the bunting. And he told me the other day when he was going against R.A. Dickey, he went right out of his way and says, look, I'm a fastball hitter. I'll bunt on this guy 4 times if I have to. He was joking, but I think he gets it that he's not just going to give in. He's like, all right, if you want to take this away from me, then I'll bunt, and I'll hit the other way. I think that's what the team really likes about him.
Plus, I think, Jensen, with all due respect to your former line of work, anytime you can trade a pitcher, especially a relief pitcher, and you can get an everyday player, that's a pretty good trade.
Well, thinking about when you got rid of Swisher and you got rid of Bourne, you didn't want to move Michael Brantley back to center field. You like where he's at. He's very comfortable, obviously defensively, very stout in left field. So when you get a guy with Almonte, and you mentioned it, being able to cover the ground that he does and defensively saving runs for a pitching staff, that's huge. Borney, we knew the speed was there when he was healthy. He was able to do that. But I think also the arm upgrade to be able to throw guys out as well.
Jose Ramirez, a foul back. No balls, 2 strikes with 2 down and the bases empty. And Justin Verlander, 8 up, 8 down so far here today.
And to think about Lonnie Chisenhall, too. We heard Tito talk about it. He's put himself in the conversation to be the everyday right fielder next year. Defensively, what he's done, and obviously the offensive production since he's come back up from AAA.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Low and away. I think there were probably instances early on when they had Lonnie in right field where you might have looked late in the game, okay, let's get somebody else in there defensively since he was still learning the position. But I think by now, I don't think Terry thinks that way. When Lonnie's playing right field, he's in right field for the game unless you're pinch hitting for a matchup scenario. But defensively, man, the other night, incredible, 3 assists.
And the arm strength. We've seen it from third base. He's always been able to make the throw. Sometimes the accuracy has been off there, but certainly very capable out in right field.
Ramirez socks one to straightaway center field. Was playing him all the way over in left center. And so Ramirez speeds into second base with the Indians' first hit of the afternoon, a 2-out double.
Great job out of the box, too. He was thinking double the whole way. Loved the hustle. And you're right. Boy, goes ahead and played all the way over in the gap. Nice 2-out double from Jose Ramirez. Take a look at the location, too. This one, Verlander leaves over the heart of the plate. Jose doesn't miss.
Yeah, anytime you've got the defense swung around, that tells you normally pitcher misses location. And
Love
Jose didn't miss it.
Love the hustle, too. Thinking double the whole way. Going to force the defense to make a play. See if Kip can cash him in right here.
Kipnis fly to left, his only time up. Starts him off with a big curveball for a strike. There's the fastball in off the dish.
Oppo approach if you're Kipnis here. Probably looking for something, especially if it's that breaking ball, taking it the other way. You see the outfield kind of shifted over to the left side. Probably thinking the same thing.
And now 1 ball, 2 strikes to count. Chased one in the dirt. Verlander strikes him out. We've played 3 at Progressive Field. It remains Detroit 1, Cleveland nothing.
Friday when the Indians host the White Sox. Grab your dogs and head out to the corner for the best setting for baseball. Visit Indians.com for tickets. I know I need a hot dog right about now.
Get that man a dog.
Me too.
Nick Castellanos to lead off the 4th for Detroit. And he takes a strike. He grounded out his only time up.
A rarity today. Detroit hitter taking a first pitch. They swung at 7 of the first 15 that they've seen today. Indians only 1 out of 10.
Broke his bat, rolls it to short. Lindor will throw him out.
That was a dagger.
Our injury report brought to you by the injury lawyers at Elk & Elk. Corey Kluber dealing with that right hamstring problem. Now, The other day he tried to do some running in the outfield. Let's get on to Andre. How'd that go? What's the latest?
Things have gone pretty well for him. He's thrown a couple bullpens. It looks like if everything stays the way that it is, he will start on Thursday for the Indians with all the pitchers backed up because of the rain the last 2 days. He still feels it a little bit, but Matt, the good thing is he doesn't feel it when he's pitching. So Thursday looks like the day for Corey Kluber.
All right, that sounds good. Real good
to know.
news. Steven Moya clobbers one high in the air. Deep right field. Back is Lonnie Chisenhall. He can't find it, and it hits the base of the wall. Moya is going to head to third. It'll be a one-out triple on a ball that Lonnie just simply lost in the sun. And here at Progressive Field, we have seen that for a number of right fielders. It can be a tough sun field in day games.
You look at where he was backing up and just the route that he took. You could tell that it was really tough for him to see it. Take another look at it right here. You see he's searching for it, can't see it at all.
I wonder if Jensen, when he looked back to see where he was, and then he looked back up, if that's when he just never picked it up again.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, Cody Anderson going to have to bear down right here. The way Verlander's going today, you'd think 1 or 2 runs, it may be tough to get off him.
Well, Moya almost hit it out of here. And with a one-out, James McCann, who singled to left his first time up, is the batter. With the infield partway in. Popped him up. This is not going to do it.
There's a gift.
Lindor calling for it. Called off by Brantley, who makes the catch, and Moya has to hold 2 away.
Good job right here. Little baseball 101. Brantley charging hard and calls him off. Right play right here, Lindor. Watch out. Duck and cover.
But from an infielder standpoint, you go until you get called off.
That's right. That's right. And the good thing, too, about that with Brantley coming in, if Moya had tried to go from third, now he's got that momentum coming to home plate.
Dixon Machado struck out his only time up, stands in. And a fastball in the dirt.
That was a gift. You think about Moya at third with less than 2 outs. McCann, your job to try and get it deep enough to the outfield. Thank you very much.
Cody's 60th pitch of the day is fouled right back. And it's a 1-ball, 1-strike count with 2 down here in the 4th.
We mentioned hitters against Cody with runners on. They're hitting .311 with nobody on. Goes down to 185. So that's been an adjustment, too, for Cody coming up from AAA. He's been able to really sequence and execute a lot better with nobody on. And still the learning curve, there with guys on. You got to limit the damage.
Down low. 2 balls and a strike.
As we mentioned, the runners on. Cody done a pretty good job today. Detroit 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, it's chopped foul over by the Tribe dugout. So Moya's at third with 2 down. And a 2-ball, 2-strike count on Dixon Machado. Strike 3 call.
Wow. Big time pitch.
Strikes out Machado for the 2nd time today. This is a big one. It remains 1-0 Detroit. Now's the time to tweet your strongest fan photo to us using the hashtag #STODataStrongFan for a chance to have one of your pictures shown during an upcoming telecast. It's all courtesy of T-Mobile. Well, we go down to the bottom of the fourth, and for Cleveland, 2-3-4 due up in the order. Justin Verlander's allowed just one hit through the first three and has struck out 3.
Kind of a big inning if you think about how this game has transpired. Cody Anderson kind of bobbing and weaving in a couple situations, but now the way Verlander's pitched, he's looked really, really strong today.
Looking like the Justin Verlander of old for sure. Maybe not the 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but certainly a 94-mile-an-hour heater to go along with a 78-mile-an-hour breaking ball. Man, Lindor swats one to left. Moya will make that catch. One away. Our great clip of the game goes back to Thursday night. Michael Brantley in the clutch, first in the 7th. That tied the game, or that put the Indians ahead at that time, and then Detroit came right back. And Michael then came right back and put him ahead again for good in the bottom of the 8th.
I'll tell you what, I never liked facing him in spring training. When we had inter-squads, we had room together for a couple spring trainings. It was just like he knew everything that was coming. So, needless to say, I paid for a lot of steak dinners.
He's such a good hitter in terms of knowing exactly what he can handle, what he can get to.
Yes.
He doesn't, very rarely do you ever see him chase a ball that he can't do something to it.
I want to say there was a stat in August about pitches that he swung and missed at, and it was in the single digits.
Oh, yeah.
That's incredible. When you think about making contact, number one, but number two, having the discipline that he has and he's exhibited. He rarely misses a pitch, as you said, but man, when he makes contact, he's one of the best in the game.
And because he doesn't really chase a lot of bad pitches, he ends up in good hitters' counts more times than not.
Yes.
And he's not afraid to hit with 2 strikes, so if he does get behind, he's going to work you. You're not going to have an easy at-bat against him.
What's been really impressive, what he's done with runners in scoring position for the past couple of years, that consistency. You're talking about a guy that's over 350. Not 300, 350. And that kind of consistent production, incredible.
There's a big curveball, and it drops in for a strike. That's going to be a tough weapon for Verlander today.
Yeah, top to bottom action. It's right off the top of his fastball. Even a guy like Brantley, who can see it very well, that's going to be tough to hit.
To center field, in comes Goes. Out goes Machado, and it's the shortstop who pulls it down 2 away.
Only 46 pitches, almost through the 4th inning. Verlander's been incredibly efficient at fastball, curveball combination. As you said, boy, there were years where that's all he needed some days. And he could run it up there, 98, 99. Just throw that bowling ball curveball right off of it.
Yeah. Carlos Santana grounded out his only time up in the 2nd. And that came on a 3-2 pitch as he takes that big curveball for a strike. Down at his feet. 1-1.
If you're a Detroit fan, what you like about Verlander today, he has been able to change speeds really well. But when he's missed, we talk about Cody Anderson, being able to pitch in off the plate. Verlander's been at the corners, and he's been able to throw that curveball with such consistency already. You think about how dominant he has been. This is the guy we have seen from years past.
Up and in. 2 balls and a strike. Three and one. Verlander, 35 out of 50 pitches for strikes so far.
Good stuff. He's had good late movement.
Back out of play. No, I mean, there's a case where you got the can set up low and away, and that's where he throws it, low and away. That ball leaks back over the middle of the plate.
Yep.
We got a tie ball game.
And Santana from the left side. It's a guy that can handle Verlander very well in the power department. Hoping for a fastball middle of the plate.
Breaking ball strikes him out. That's 4 strikeouts for Justin Verlander. The Indians go 1, 2, 3. And after 4, it's the Tigers 1, the Indians nothing. Cleveland Indians baseball is brought to you by your Northern Ohio Honda dealers, by the Cleveland Clinic. Call for an appointment today. And by the game-changing all-new Ford F-150. The future is tough. 1-0 Detroit as we go to the 5th inning. Top of the order due up for the Tigers. Anthony goes, looks at a pitch outside, ball 1. He doubled and scored in the first.
Kind of a big inning for Cody Anderson here. You know, you look at where he was in the first, and he's given up 6 hits, but really has managed very well and navigated some tough spots. And get through the 5th here and give the offense a chance to get back on it.
Yeah, second time through the lineup, they're just 1 for 8 against him. He had 1 walk. And the 1 hit was a fly ball. It probably could have been caught by Lonnie Chisenhall. He just lost track of it.
That was a big spot, though, for him. Runner on third, 1 out. Could have extended the lead, but he made some big-time pitches. You get that fly ball in short left field. But now, 3rd time around and top of the order.
Strike is called. And it's 2-2.
His changeup's been really good today. And we mentioned at the beginning of the game. That was going to be something that he needed to use early and often. It's a big reason why he's only given up 1 run.
And that is a foul ball. Goes, try to pepper it over there toward third. Jose Ramirez getting the start at the hot corner.
How do you like him over at third?
I think he's been really good wherever they put him. I mean, defensively, he's got terrific hands, good range, good arm.
And we've seen Tito DH Kip to get Hosey in there at second, for defensive purposes. Now you think about the double play combination, he and Lindor, and down in Columbus, they've already had a rapport. They've had some chemistry, so really not missing a beat there.
The 3-2 fouled back. I just think that, Urshela has been so good at third base defensively.
Yes.
That the two of them, Urshela and Lindor, have really shorn up that left side of the defense.
And you wonder, Mike Aviles will be a free agent after this season. Is Jose Ramirez your utility guy coming into next year?
You wonder how a young player can handle that role when they don't have the experience of a 500 at-bat season in the big leagues, or a couple of them. Usually your better utility guys sort of transition to that role. So I don't know. And Ramirez certainly can handle the moving around. Strike 3 called. Back-to-back Ks for Cody Anderson, one down here in the 5th.
Great location with that fastball. Run it back over the outside part of the plate. He's looked really, really good.
Our in-game recap brought to you by your Toyota dealers. Only 1 run so far. It came 2 batters into the game when Ian Kinsler wrapped a single to right. Brought home Anthony Goes, who had doubled to start the game. And that's been it.
Well, with Cody, the execution. That was the big MO for him in those starts. After his first 4 starts, his next 4, he was 0-2 with a 10 ERA. Couldn't really get into the 5th inning. And a lot of that was due to him not being able to locate. And it doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a veteran. This instant feedback in the big leagues, if you don't make your pitches,
you'll know.
You'll know.
Kinsler takes a strike. It's 1-1.
I didn't like that. Another good fastball in, though, from Cody. And, Matt, you see a lot of young guys that they're a little timid sometimes going into the inside part of the plate and afraid to hit guys. I think Cody, he's been obviously a guy that's executed well on the inside part.
Missed up and in there. Yeah, it's 2-1.
A lot of that goes to Gomes, too. Trusting him, and he wants it in there, and Cody's delivered.
Wow, was he out in front of that one?
Hanging changeup. Watch out.
The 2-2. Weekly tap by Cody. Kipnis is there, and he throws him out.
Nice
2 away.
job. Nice job. A lot of weak contact now at second, and now 3rd time through the order. I think there was a little bit of a cutter. Take another look at it here. Yep, just kind of fades away. Nice little tilt to it. Weak contact to Kip. 2nd out of the inning. And he's made 77 pitches, and you see 8 groundouts, 3 flyouts. He's kept the ball down. Kind of misleading there with the pitch count because he's had to battle out of some big situations early.
Now Miguel Cabrera backs away from a pitch that just missed inside. He walked his last time up. And that's low, 2-0.
Now would be a good time to go inside. You're behind. You're not worried if you walk him here, but you certainly don't want to leave anything over the outside part of the plate.
He gets it in there for a strike.
Having faced Miggy and just the respect you have to have because of his ability to adjust and You remember Danny Salazar, I think his first outing against Detroit, he had punched him out 3 times, and then he comes back and hits a big-time home run.
Oh, yeah.
The evolution of...
Changed that whole game.
Yes. Kind of the dagger for that season, too. I mean, that was a big series. Indians got swept, but his ability to really use all parts of the ballpark, sensational. One of the best right-handed hitters you'll ever see.
Cody just elevated that fastball above the belt just a little bit. And he was able to get Cabrera to swing through it.
Wouldn't mind seeing that again. Stay there.
To center field. Almonte a long run in. It's going to be Chisenhall who gets there. And the Tigers go 1-2-3 for the first time today. Lonnie Chisenhall, Yan Gomes, and Abraham Almonte due up for Cleveland. Lonnie went out swinging his first time up. And that's out of play. I think, Jensen, if memory serves, 3 of the 4 strikeouts for Verlander have come with that big breaking ball. You got Almonte with the fastball, but Chisenhall, Santana, and I think Kipnis all with the curveball.
Sure has, and it's come right off his fastball, too. It really, when you saw Justin Verlander in his heyday, it was this kind of breaking ball, and he's got it. It's a lethal combination at 93, 94, this fastball, and then no hump in that breaking ball, just comes right off the top.
There's the fastball up, 1-1.
You see guys as they get older, a lot of times young fireballers, they want to roll 97, 98 up there all the time. Now you see Verlander, he's able to pitch at 92, 93, and then when he really needs to, he'll reach back and hit that next gear.
Yeah, that's the thing you wonder about. You know, is it still there if he needs it, or does he not need it anymore? 2-1 pitch. I mean, if you can locate with 92 to 94 with that breaking ball that he's got, I mean, sure, it's always nice. If you've got it in the tank and you can reach back and get 97,
let it eat.
ends up walking Chisenhall. First free pass issued. Indians get their leadoff man aboard for the first time today. He's been 4 strikeouts today.
It's the late action. It's the late action on this breaking ball, and really when you're sitting between one pitch or the other, it is so tough to adjust. You got to recognize it, number one, make contact secondly, but it's how he's been able to get to it. It's the sequencing of where he's gone. Only 1 hit today, now leadoff walk. Hopefully the Indians can, manufacture a run here, but 57 pitches and in 4+ innings. He's been very methodical and very efficient.
Well, Yan Gomes will step in. He grounded out his only time up in the second.
Wonder if he hit and run right here. Get Almonte on deck. CJ behind him. And the way Verlander's been going, runs are going to be at a premium.
Popped him up. Out of play to the right.
Talk about coming back from injury. Yan Gomes, a completely different guy. Now that he's healthy again, but I think this pitching staff overall, let's take Corey Kluber, for instance. I believe it was 4 or 5 starts he was with Roberto Perez, an ERA over 6. And then back with Gomers, at 2.5. That speaks to just the comfort level and really the talent that Gomes has.
It's been a frustrating year for him from an offensive standpoint because he's a guy that just expects a lot out of himself. But he's been very clutch. If you just look at a few key statistics, you might think, boy, awful year. But he's had some big hits at key moments.
Especially late in the ball game. Just go back to that Toronto series. 2 huge homers late in the game.
To first, it's fair. Just over the bag. Cabrera couldn't get it. Chisenhall's on his way to third, and he'll be stopped there into second base with a double is Yan Gomes.
It's an exceptional piece of hitting. This is off the plate almost, and Gomes sticks his bat out there right out from the outstretched grip of Cabrera. Almost looked like he was falling over on that. Boy, leadoff walk. Now you get Gomes with a double here. Indians definitely in business.
Boy, with him holding the runner on at first, you figure that's going to be right in his hip pocket.
Yeah.
But he never really got the glove down to the dirt. The ball was by him. So a chance to, at the very least, tie it right here. Abraham Almonte, the batter. Castellanos in on the grass at third. Rest of the infielders back up. And Almonte looks at a ball down on the dirt.
Interesting strategy. Verlander going from the full windup here, too. Means Gomes will be able to get a nice secondary lead from second, so you think a single could possibly score 2 here.
Now Almonte says, hold on, let's regroup. Verlander out of the full windup. And a little check swing foul. 1-1.
A little bit inside there. See how far in it gets it. Yeah, he got in there pretty good. Kind of in between pitches there.
Tom Bochenek says that Justin Verlander's ERA in the 5th inning is the highest of any inning that he has pitched this year. For whatever reason, his ERA balloons to over 7 in this inning.
Wow.
In particular.
The money inning, too. Get your wins and losses right here.
Now the 1-1. You wonder if that's a product of the time he missed, the injury, and you get through the lineup second, maybe third time. Just don't have the stamina. I don't know.
Sometimes pitchers can, you take a look at the scoreboard with a starting pitcher, you need to get 5 innings to get a win. How about Almonte with the runners on, though?
Well, McCann, not sure that he and Verlander are on the same page. He wants to be 100% sure.
And right here with the sequencing, and I think it was probably something McCann is talking with Verlander about, you're in a 2-1 count. You have a base open, so you don't want to give Almonte something, that he can get to the outfield. You wonder now if they're thinking, let's pull that big breaking ball back in, down and into a lefty, or if they're going to expand the strike zone outside. Second and third, nobody out. You still want to be able to limit the damage here, but you also know that you're facing the bottom of the lineup with the right-hander on deck.
2-1 to Almonte. Couldn't tease him with that.
Good job.
They're in 1.
One pitch, one spot here if you're Almonte. Nothing else. Don't go chasing anything.
Chris Johnson waits on deck. Drive down a run here in the 5th. And Verlander steps away again.
I don't think he gets anything to hit here.
Oh, wow. A called strike, but it sure looked like it was in off the plate.
Good little two-seamer. It's going to run back over the inside. Almonte, I think he sees it in here, and not that he gave up on it, but just didn't want any part of it. It might have been a little bit off, but that one's close. Verlander will take it.
So a full count. That's ball 4 in the dirt, and the bases are loaded. So Verlander walks his second in the inning.
It's a very disciplined at-bat by Almonte right there. Not chasing anything, stayed with his approach. Good job laying off of it.
And to your point, Verlander was not going to give in to him. With the right-handed hitter on deck, he was going to get him to swing at his pitch. And he didn't do it. So the bases are loaded. Nobody out. And Chris Johnson, the batter.
I think 2 things there, Matty. When you have that base open and you're at the bottom part of the lineup, knowing the matchup favors the guy on, at least favors with you with the guy on deck, you want to be able to keep that double play in order. Right here, you can still cut down that lead runner from third base and not have anybody score.
Johnson chases one in the dirt.
If you're Chris Johnson, you want to take a lot out of that Almonte at bat right there by laying off that breaking ball. Oof. The dark one.
Yeah. Another breaking ball, and it's 0-2. Jose Ramirez waiting on deck. Indians threatening for the first time, really, today. Got a 2-out double from Jose Ramirez in the 3rd, but Kipnis struck out to follow and ended that inning. It's the only other time they've had base runners, and they're consecutive here in the 5th. Low and away, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
If you're Chris Johnson right here, you have got to see everything up. And knowing full well that Verlander's breaking ball is as good as it's been all day, this is not a situation where you want to give in.
Now the 1-2. Line drive, base hit, right field. Johnson delivers. Chisenhall scores to tie the game. Gomes stops at third. Base is still loaded. Down in the count, Chris Johnson stayed right with it and just slapped it into right field.
As our old buddy Derek Shelton would say, short to it, long through it. He saw it up. Exactly what you needed. Oppo approach. We'll take a look at this sequence. This is our McDonald's. I'm loving it. Pitch by pitch, and really the first couple pitches here, you wondered, what was what was he really trying to do here? But he got back in the at-bat, down 1-2, but he goes the other way. That pitch was off the plate, too. Exceptional piece of hitting, though, and ties this one up.
Was that another slider?
I think it was.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
Jose Ramirez maybe went to the well one too many times. Johnson makes him pay. Tie game. Base is still loaded.
There it is. Fifth inning. ERA.
And he hasn't retired a batter yet.
Nope.
And the bullpen is up for Detroit, even though he's just over 70 pitches. So Brad Ausmus is sensing, I've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
Ramirez takes. It's a strike, 1-1. I've always wondered, Jensen, as a starting pitcher, you're in a situation like this where theoretically you've got a long way to go in this game, and all of a sudden you see a guy up in the bullpen. What does that do to a pitcher's psyche?
Oh, you're definitely thinking about it. And from the relieving aspect, now that you have expanded rosters in September, the manager has that ability to say, you know what, we're going to try and shut this down from getting it out of hand. But certainly, you don't want somebody behind you having to come in and take care of your mess.
Jose Ramirez awaits the 1-1. Out of play. Drew Verhagen and Tom Gorzolani are getting loose. Lefty-righty action.
Verhagen, former Vanderbilt product. Had to get that in there.
Oh, all right, Tennessee. The Music City sends its regards.
I'm sure they do.
Ramirez fouls it back, 1-2 the count. It stays.
I got to figure out how to win a football game down there. Those were not fun games to watch in my college tenure.
The Vandy football program wasn't up to snuff.
Well, we had Cutler, but you get to the fourth quarter and, oh boy.
There are the base runners. Gomes, Almonte, and Johnson. Nobody out. A 1-2 on the way to Ramirez. Popped him straight up on the infield. Infield fly rule in effect, and Kinsler makes the catch, one away.
Tribe is still in the wild card hunt, and you can be here for the final push. The Indians host division rival Kansas City and Chicago starting tomorrow as they target a postseason opportunity. Visit Indians.com for tickets. Longest homestand of the year, and it comes at the end.
Yeah.
Kind of odd. We'll bookend it, too, end with Boston, the last series, and then open with them next year.
Yeah, well, hopefully they can make it, take advantage of that stay at home. And
the way they've been playing, I mean, we couldn't buy a series victory beginning of this season at home, and Indians have won their last 6.
10 out of their last 11.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Kipnis takes. It's low. Ball 1. Kipnis flied to left in the first, and then he struck out to end the third inning. Again, Verlander steps off.
Got to cash in right here. Bases loaded, nobody out. Got to get at least 2.
Inside, he missed.
2-0. If you're Kip right here, something to drive. Don't necessarily need, a particular pitch here, but something to drive. Stay disciplined.
Just did catch the outside corner. 2-1.
That's a good take right there. Verlander, pitcher's pitch right here. 2-0. Needed to get back in the count. Well, can't almost drop that one, but good late action. Some sink to it.
Outfield around toward left. And the 2-1. Popped him up. Back-to-back pop-ups. Castellanos. 2 down.
Man. Those two hurt right there because you got Verlander on the ropes. You're in a hitter's count, too. You're in an advantage count. got to have a better swing.
Well, that'll leave it up to Francisco Lindor, who is 0 for 2. He is grounded out. He is flied out. Can he deliver the big 2-out hit to open this game up?
How impressed have you been with his offensive output?
Yeah, all phases. I mean, he's really a same hitter from both sides of the plate. Doesn't seem to be a drop off one to the other. Very similar approach each side. He's strong. I don't want to say he's got power. He's just a strong kid. 8 home runs, 17 doubles.
That's probably been the most surprising thing for me is obviously one of the very ballyhooed prospects that we've heard about. And I think the power numbers this early have probably been something you would not have expected for him as he's come up.
Now Verlander into the line on the 0-1 pitch. Fouled right back. I'll say this, and I don't know how the rest of this at-bat's going to go. Doesn't look good down 0-2. But Terry Francona paid him, to me, the ultimate compliment because, as said, normally a young player, you see a lot of young players come in, make a splash, get hot, sort of take the league by storm. Then the league adjusts.
Yes.
And they bring him back down to earth.
Right.
That hasn't happened with Lindor. He has taken the league by storm, and they have not been able to adjust.
And maybe we'll have to wait until next year. You talk about sophomore slumps, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But you and I have seen a lot of guys that have taken the league by storm their first time up, and then that adjustment maybe doesn't happen until that second season.
He just seems to get better and better. But as I said, he's in a tough spot here. Verlander stepped off.
Yeah, I don't know who's he looking at.
Sort of looking up into the crowd. I don't know.
It's good heckling down there. Keep
Maybe
it going.
that's what it was. Somebody got under his skin. Up high.
You talk about Michael Brantley's discipline at the plate. As Verlander now up to 82 pitches, 30 in this inning. Francisco Lindor has taken a little page, I think, out of Michael Brantley's playbook and how he has been able to put together some pretty good at-bats.
Up the middle, it's through. Lindor delivers. Gomes scores. Indians take the lead. Here comes Almonte. It's a 2-out, 2-run single by Francisco Lindor. There seems to be no stopping this kid.
You look at both of the run-scoring at-bats. Chris Johnson down in the count. Francisco Lindor down in the count. The Yellowwood bringing the lumber at bat right here. It is just a fantastic piece of hitting. He stayed with the pitch, didn't try and do too much, shoot it right back up the middle. As we said, you got to get at least 2 here. Francisco Lindor delivers.
He had been 0 for 8 with the bases loaded until that big hit right there, and the Indians are up 3-1. And now Michael Brantley with 2 on and 2 out as the 8th man to bat in the inning. 0 for 2 on the day. Top of the strike zone.
And this may be Verlander's last hitter. Over 30 pitches in the inning. Wheels have really started to fall off. And to think he was so dominant those first 4 innings. Wipe out breaking balls.
Well, it started with the walk to Chisenhall. It was a pretty good at bat for Lonnie to work it. And then Gomes just slapped one inside the bag at first for the double.
All began with the leadoff walk.
Yeah.
What's the statistic? I think over 70% of the time, leadoff walks will come around to score.
And that was the first free pass Verlander had issued. In the air, left field, near the line, long run, Moya. Will he get there? He does, and makes the catch to end the inning. But the Indians erupt for 3 in the 5th, and they take the lead. Thursday night had 3, count them, 3 assists as an outfielder. First Indian to do that since Rick Manning in 1981.
Wow. And they were at critical junctures, big time plays. And Tito Francona had talked about it. I want to say it was this week. He said Lonnie has made himself into one of the better right fielders in the game. And you think about, he hasn't had a lot of time as an outfielder in the big leagues. So to give that kind of praise this early, I mean, that tells you the kind of contributions that he's had.
Well, Terry feels like he's able to just let his arm, just let it hunt, just let it go. And he's got an accurate arm, and maybe because of the time he spent as an infielder, he knows to keep the ball down, hit the cutoff man on his throws. And so, you add all that up. And plus, he moves really well in the outfield. He's not a burner, but he covers a lot of ground.
Right. And Matty, when I played with him in AAA, the one thing that stood out.
Martinez to deep left, inside the line, a fair ball. He'll have to hurry to get the second. He does. And a leadoff double for Detroit.
That'll be one thing to watch this inning, too. Cody Anderson sitting for almost 25 minutes. That big rally. And as a pitcher, he could probably make some adjustments. But back to Chisenhall. And just the plays, almost Jeter-esque. I mean, what was he doing, right there?
Comes in from right field, gets into the rundown, tags him out, throws him out.
Exactly. And Tito says, go somewhere. Don't stand around. But I think these are the more impressive things. The accuracy of the throw. We've known he's had a strong arm. He's always been showcasing that at third base. The accuracy sometimes from that point has not always been on. But I think, too, mentally, Lonnie's better out there. Doesn't have to worry, each time, each pitch. That's the hot corner. It's a tough position to play because you've got to be locked in on every pitch and really be focused. But in the outfield sometimes, and he's a very laid-back guy, and maybe that is helping him too from a mental standpoint of just being able to be calm out there and not have to worry about so many things at one time.
Now, right now, Victor Martinez 0 for 2 on the day is at the dish with a runner at second base and takes a strike. It's 0-2.
Another critical inning for Cody Anderson here in the aspect of making quality pitches with runners in scoring position. You're ahead of Victor Martinez right here. Still have a base open, so don't give in to him trying to get it out.
Missed outside.
I like Gomer's idea right here. Go outside, try and extend the strike zone a little bit. Let's see if they try and pound him in here.
Zach McAllister starts to warm in the Cleveland bullpen as Cody Anderson approaches 90 pitches. Weekly bounce to Lindor. Victor is retired. J.D. Martinez aggressively going to third base on that play. You got to know you can make it if you're going to go there.
Good read by J.D. Martinez, though. Saw it right off the bat. Did not hesitate. And now runner in scoring position as Mickey Callaway will go make a visit to the mound. Zach McAllister warming. And right out here, I think this is, something where you've got to bear down again. But you see Martinez, a great read right there, getting to third. This is a situation with Cody Anderson where you don't have to give in to Castellanos. You can still make your pitches. Even if you walk him, you still have the opportunity for the double play.
J.D. Martinez, 2 for 3 on the day. He's at third base with 1 out. Nick Castellanos, a couple of ground ball outs. Indians will trade a run for an out here.
Yeah, if this inning progresses, you think McAllister probably going to be ready for McCann?
Down low.
A couple other things now that you're getting into, the 6th inning here with Cody Anderson approaching 100 pitches. Probably not going to be a long leash. I think Tito will start to play matchups if it gets any further.
2-0.
Give him a lot of credit, though. The way this game started, and we saw the aggressive approach from Detroit, he has really pitched backwards very well this second and third time through the lineup. He's really kept guys off balance and on their front foot.
High fly ball right field. Back is Chisenhall. Makes the catch. Almonte ran all the way over there just to be sure. Tagging and coming home is J.D. Martinez. It's a one-run game now at 3-2, and there are 2 down in the inning. Time to take a look at our Levin Furniture player profile on Steven Moya. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. Terry Francona is going to make a pitching change with 2 down. Base is empty. And our Cleveland Clinic call to the bullpen will be for Zach McAllister. So Cody Anderson is done after going 5 2/3, allowing 2 runs here this afternoon. Zach McAllister coming on for the Indians. And McAllister making his 53rd appearance of the year. 3 up, 4 down, 2.97 ERA. 60 2/3 innings. He's only walked 17 and has struck out 76. McAllister making the transition from starter to bullpen.
He has really struggled with runners on base. That's been the one thing that, he's got the power stuff. He's been able to make the transition very well, kind of being that bridge to Brian Shaw and Cody Allen. But it's been his struggles with runners on that has really been the bane for him this season.
Well, he's facing Steven Moya, who we've already seen has some pretty good pop. He has singled, he has tripled off the wall. Out of the Dominican Republic, Tigers minor league player of the year. Last year he hit 35 home runs in the minors. This year the home run number's down just 20. Strikeouts are up. And you have to wonder, the old saying is you can't teach contact. If a guy strikes out a lot, well, you're going to have to live with that.
The Brandon Moss
effect,
a lot of home runs.
Yeah.
This is one of their top prospects, a guy that this organization is very high on. You can see the physical tools, and he's 6'6". The bat speed is there, and just wonder if he can shorten his swing just a little bit. And 95 right by you.
2-2. Moya is in left field today. The interesting thing there, he only played 13 games in left field at AAA this year. But so far, he's handled left field just fine. McAllister trying to get him to offer. He wouldn't do it. Full count. And Moya taking ball 4. Time now for a Mazda game break. Here's Al Pawlowski.
Hey, Matt Jensen, let's head up to New York where the Yankees are taking on the Blue Jays, and Dustin Ackley leaves the yard for the 7th time this year. This one's been all New York. Masahiro Tanaka's retired the last 12 in a row. 4-0 Yankees, 7th inning at Yankee Stadium, fellas.
Well, they need it. They've lost 5 in a row and have fallen 4.5 back at the Blue Jays. Even though they've got a wild card spot pretty well in hand. Anytime, though, you hit the skids this late in the season, I mean, people can panic in a hurry.
Yeah. And Kansas City, obviously will finish with the best record, and they will face that wild card winner. I don't know if they match up really well against Toronto or New York. I can't buy them in a short series against them. You hope Troy Tulowitzki's okay. Bad collision last night, had to come out of the game.
Well, McAllister can't find the zone with McCann at the plate, and out goes Gomes. Yeah, what did we read on Tulowitzki? A fractured shoulder blade?
Yeah, something with his back. And I'll have to go back and watch it, but that had to be a pretty significant collision with Kevin Pillar.
Yeah, cracked shoulder blade. That doesn't sound good.
No.
Left-hander Giovanni Soto about to get loose.
You think Soto's probably up for ghosts, if it gets that far? Need a big pitch right here.
Low and away. 3-0. He had Dixon Machado on deck. The 3-0. That's on the outside part of the plate.
Striking a ground ball. Get back in and really shut down this inning right here. It has not looked good for McAllister so far, but you can get out of it here, make a quality pitch. Don't want to turn this lineup back over to the top.
Just a little bit low, and he walks him. So he's walked the first 2 he's faced. And Dixon Machado will be the batter.
And we mentioned McAllister's struggle with runners on. In 110 at-bats, opponents have a .282 average against. It's a pretty significant number, especially if you're going to be a late-inning reliever. As the one positive was when McAllister made this transition, his stuff was good enough. You could go, around the order one time and not have to, make the adjustment the second time through. There's been times that he has really struggled to throw strikes in some close situations like this one right here.
The 0-1. Back out of play.
I think there was a time too, just the confidence in his off-speed stuff wasn't there. We saw a lot of prolonged at bats with a lot of fastballs. As a reliever, you only need 2 good pitches, and he certainly has that. But confidence is key, especially when you're coming in late in a ball game and facing the bottom of the order. You can't let up.
The 0-2. Out of play. Well, he's thrown 14 pitches, and most of them have been 95 miles an hour or above.
Bringing it. We'll see one right here by him.
just a bit off the plate.
Reach back a little bit there. Had some hair on it. You've extended the strike zone here a little bit. You've gone away. Let's see if Gomes tries and pounds him in here.
Just reached out, spoiled it to stay alive.
97. Cranking it up. Don't want to change here. Machado fouling it off to the right side. It tells you he's really behind on it. I wonder it'd be a good time to come in on him.
Or if you're going to go away, get it down at the knees. Well, he went to a slider and missed outside.
Everything's been away, away, away. Now you're 2-2. Now you're in a position where you gotta be over the plate with something. I don't think he goes back-to-back breaking balls here. I think he sticks with the hard stuff.
Yeah, you get the feeling it might have just been a pitch for show. Upstairs with a fastball and a full count.
He's ahead 0-2. Now you're 3-2. Runners are going to be off. Tough situation. Dug himself a big hole.
This will already be the 8th pitch of the at-bat here for the number 9 hitter, Dixon Machado. The runners go, and it's ball 4. He's walked 3 in a row to load him up.
It's going to be all.
Terry Francona is going to go to the left-hander and the former Tiger farmhand, Giovanni Soto. Well, at least you would think. Let's wait and be sure. But he's making his way to the center of the diamond. And it's going to be Manship. So the right-hander Manship is coming on when we come back.
An adult ticket. Kids' tickets are located in the family deck here at Progressive Field. Log on to Indians.com/kids ticket today. Have you been down the slide?
I have not.
I need to do it. We were thinking about doing that for Indians Live.
Yeah.
A Fox vision of the head first slide. Me and Al Pal.
We got toboggan run. Jeff Manship on for the 25th time this year. He's 1-0 with a 1.21 ERA. Another guy that Terry Francona has really been singing the praises of. His ability to come in and, whether it's get a guy, pitch an inning, Pitch a couple of innings, pitching a close game, pitching a blowout. He's done a little bit of everything. And I think he's really, Jensen, worked his way into one of those very important roles in the bullpen, which is why he's on right here, trying to preserve a one-run lead with the bases loaded.
Another guy that pounds the zone. You be an effective late-inning reliever. You come in and throw strike one, and you have something to kind of change the pace a little bit.
Inside ball one. Anthony goes, backs away. He's 1 for 3, doubled and scored in the first. He grounded out in the second, struck out in the fifth.
And Manship had a really good spring training. You know, this is a guy who was under the radar. He was in the running for that last bullpen spot. He really took advantage when he had opportunities.
Out of play. Remember, it was the Indians who got the 2-out bases loaded hit in the fifth that put them ahead, and now it's the Tigers trying to answer right back in the same situation. I can't say I'm real crazy about this breeze blowing in today.
We're not either.
Gonna put it out there. Not quite ready for fall.
Swirling.
The 1-1. Missed inside. 2 balls and a strike. Although it looks like next week the weather is going to warm up. It's going to be beautiful for the 4 games against Kansas City.
Good weekend series against the White Sox. Now, if you're Manship right here, nothing over the fat part of the plate.
Hit it off of his foot.
Ouch. Oof. I've never done that, but every position player I talk to, not a good feeling. Take a look at it. Ouch.
And no matter where you have that padding, it always seems to find somewhere.
Eludes it. You're right. Yeah.
It looked like they hit him right off the toe, which is about the only portion of his foot that's not covered by that padding. And it hit right off the end.
It's going to need an extender on that Evo shield.
Yeah. Like Rick said, pretty soon they'll be going to be wearing
steel-toed
shoes.
Yeah.
The 2-2. Low and a full count. Man.
It is.
This has been a struggle this inning.
The command has eluded each Indians reliever so far. It's not. It's more mental. It's not a mechanics thing. It's more mental. You really got to bear down. These are big-time situations, and you just cannot take a pitch off.
Everybody will be moving on this 3-2 pitch with Ian Kinsler next. And a foul right back. Boy, he had a good cut.
Big momentum shift right here, one way or the other. It's a shutdown inning. You had to have it. McAllister struggling. Manship can pick him up right here. Just got to make one good pitch.
Again, it's fouled away.
You wonder here, does he change things up? Full count, stick with the hard stuff. Ghost has been late on both those swings. Let's see what Gomes thinks of here.
Here's the payoff pitch. Off speed, and he fouled it back. Oh, no, I guess he stayed with the fastball. It looked like it was sinking, like maybe it was a changeup of some sort.
Now you can change location here. You've got Ghost leaning a little bit. Now you can stand him up or come inside if you want to. He's hanging out over the part of the plate, the outside part of the plate, that is. I wouldn't mind something off speed right here. Wouldn't mind it.
Hey, got him! Nice job by Jeff Manship. He stayed with it. It was a struggle, but he strikes him out to end the inning, and the Tigers leave him loaded. They get a run closer, 3-2, middle of the sixth. with the Indians leading it by a run. Justin Verlander survived the 5th inning. After the Indians loaded the bases against him with nobody out, they did manage 3 runs to take the lead. Tigers loaded them up, albeit with 2 outs, after they had already scored a run, but did not do any further damage. So back to work goes Verlander facing Carlos Santana, the only Indian who did not come to the plate in the 5th.
Good time for response runs right here. Another long half inning.
Yeah, Verlander sat for 24 minutes.
And that can be tough getting up for the 6th time. You had that kind of a layoff.
2-0.
Already early indications. 88 pitches, but it's more of you're out of rhythm. You know, the sink is not there. And the way we were going in the first 4 innings, he looked like he was going to be untouchable today.
Yeah, sure did. He had a good fastball, curveball combination going early on.
Yes.
It was
wipeout curveball, too.
Almost unhittable at times. 3-1. Well, I bet if he walks the leadoff man, that bullpen will spring back into action.
You got it. Because now you're close. Now you're, a run away. And Brad Osmond, he's not going to take any chances. Already at 90 pitches. Probably not too long of a leash here.
Just floated a changeup in there for a strike and a full count. Haven't seen many of those.
3-1 combo.
See it more and more.
Gutsy. I like it.
Seems like anymore your best fastball counts are first pitch, maybe 1-0.
And the guys that are able to throw the batting practice fastballs on those 0-0 counts, you're behind in the count, just enough off of your regular fastball to get guys out on their front foot, and then you got hitters going back to the dugout saying, did you see this? What did that look like? Very big weapon. Greg Maddux, one of the best to ever use those.
3-2. Popped back out of play.
Well, this is a time in the old days where he'd just rear back and get 98.
Yeah, this is where
see you later.
Kind of needs it. Went to the off-speed pitch. Curveball's been an effective put-away weapon for him. The slider we've seen at times. Hasn't used it a lot, but he's mixed it in there.
Santana's seen 20 pitches and 3 at-bats. Talk about discipline. This is a guy who doesn't get cheated.
Another slider, got a piece of that in and out of the glove.
Now this at-bat may end Verlander's day. You think 10 pitches now? Creeping up there? Oh, I think McCann just flat out missed that. He barely nicked it.
And the 3-2. Hit well, but foul.
I've never been a big fan of shifting on Carlos Santana, but the way that he's gone from the left side this year, it does make sense. When they used to do that on half, on half narrow, man, you just lay one down or just fillet it to the left side. Still crazy to think he's only got 1 homer from the right side of the plate.
Yeah. Yeah, his splits have been drastic this year. 3-2. He strikes him out. A lengthy at battle, but Verlander gets him. In that 5th inning, Yan Gomes doubled over the bag at first. 2nd and 3rd, nobody out. Then Abraham Almonte walked to load him up. Chris Johnson took a breaking ball the other way, drove in a run. That tied it. And then after back-to-back pop-ups, Francisco Lindor drove in 2 to put the Indians ahead.
And whole inning started with a leadoff walk from Verlander to Lonnie Chisenhall. The 5th inning has been the undoing for Justin Verlander this whole season. A 7 ERA.
Yeah, now it's up to 8 after what happened. 8.40.
Oof.
Did he go? Yep, he did. Says Ed Hickok's down at 3rd.
I've liked from Lonnie that he hasn't chased as much since his recall. I think some mechanical changes with his hands kind of lowering him a little bit has helped him get to a lot more. And confidence is key. I mean, we've seen him, for years, and there's been struggles at the plate, but probably was looking over his shoulder a little bit last year, out of spring training. He has put it together in a great way since his recall from Columbus.
Pops this one sky high on the infield. Third baseman Castellanos called off by the shortstop Machado. 2 down. Well, maybe there's something to that 5th inning black hole because Verlander's just picked right up where he left off in the 4th.
It's always a momentum changing inning for any starting pitcher because you now become the pitcher of record if you're going to get a win. Certainly in a close game, you're looking at those things. I mean, we're all human. We all look at the scoreboard. But with Verlander, it has been a little bit of an anomaly this year because he's usually when he's rolling from the first couple innings, he's tough to derail.
Gomes fouls one back. It was only 3 starts ago. He nearly threw another no-hitter.
Yep. 1 out away.
The Angels had a 1-hit shutout, but that got him, didn't it? Yes, indeed. Gomes hit. He's aboard with 2 outs in the 6th.
Right in your living room.
Fastball off the shoulder, it looked like.
When Aroldis Chapman was coming up in Louisville, I was down in AAA. He had 104 on a radar gun, but his first pitch was right over the batter's head. And I was coaching first base, as in the minors. You have a player go out there. My goodness,
that's as close as you wanted to get to it. Huh?
I was not feeling comfortable over there. No, I was not. A lot of late swings. Not fun to get hit. And then when it's coming right back at you, oof.
Abraham Almonte scored in the 5th when he walked. This time that breaking ball down and in the slider.
Almonte just reminds me of Pedro Serrano. I mean, he can absolutely crush a fastball, but the breaking ball, it just seems like it eludes him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously whether it's something he's got to work on, whether it's just a hole in his swing that is going to be there. You have to work around it.
He has had some clutch hits, though, since he's been here. Obviously, a big splash. What do you have that first game? 4 hits?
Mm-hmm. 3 of them were for extra bases. I mean, he showed up here, and who's this guy? And where have you been?
Yeah, seriously. Well, you look at his numbers between Seattle and San Diego, it's not going to jump off the page.
No.
Well, you wouldn't have known it if you watched him that day.
That was close. It goes Abe's way, and it's 2-2.
And Tito talks about how, his attention to detail. He's very tuned in to everything around him. Always moving. If you watch him when he plays center field, he's always moving, backing up bases. Mm-hmm. Never stays still.
Oh, you think about it, Jensen. He hit 204. That means he had 11 hits in 31 games for San Diego.
Wow.
And
he had 4 in the first game here.
Yeah, and he's come over here. He's got 29 hits, 4 homers, 5 doubles, 5 triples. He serves one to left center field for a base hit with 2 outs. Gomes hits second. He's going to go to third. And Abraham Almonte shows he can make adjustments because he just stayed with that breaking ball.
Great piece of hitting right there, and especially in the count. You see where the location is, and Verlander probably was, hanging that one a little too high. But Almonte, he stays back, shoots it the other way. First and third, that'll be it for Verlander.
Yeah, it looks like Brad Ausmus has made up his mind as he goes to the center of the diamond. He hasn't asked for the baseball just yet. So he might be just talking to Verlander, get a feel for where he's at right here. He's over 100 pitches on the day, but he's been a workhorse his whole career. He's going to stay with him.
Now here we go. Another matchup again, righty against righty. Chris Johnson, a guy very much in that first at bat. Wanted to chase that breaking ball, so you wonder if Ausmus feels good enough here that you possibly get him going to the well again. That or Verlander did a really good job talking him out of it.
Well, Chris Johnson got him last time up. He goes inside with a fastball. Remember the first time it was breaking ball, breaking ball, breaking ball.
Got to think this is it for Verlander. Last at bat.
Johnson bloops one toward right field. Kinsler can't get it. Gomes scores. Almonte to third. And Chris Johnson gets Verlander for the second consecutive inning. This time he bloops one into shallow right field. And the Indians' lead is 4-2.
Again, it gets in on him. He has enough to get it over Kinsler. Just a sensational job of just strong-arming it over Kinsler. That's enough. Drops it in. Indians get another run.
And Ausmus will stay with Verlander.
Wow. Could be a backbreaker right here for Hosey.
Ramirez 1 for 2, doubled back in the third. And a strike is called. Now Monte is now at third with Johnson at first. And with 2 away. Yeah, Tom Bochenek points out that this all started with 2 outs, and Gomes was in an 0-2 hole.
Hit by the pitch.
And he got hit by a fastball up and in.
Yep.
The 1-1 to left field. And Moya will make the catch to end the inning. Indians get a run, and after 6, they lead it now 4-2. Visit mykiacleveland.com to learn more. By Levin Mattress, located in all Levin furniture and freestanding locations. And by AT&T Uverse, has more channels on the go than cable.
Indians leading at 4-2, top of the 7th. Justin Verlander, really tough 5th and 6th inning. 35 pitches in the 5th, 28 in the 6th. Chris Johnson adding on for the Indians, now to a 4-2 lead. Manship is back out there for the Tribe.
Ian Kinsler leads off for Detroit, swings at the first pitch. Great break by Brantley and a terrific catch in left field.
Wow.
Now is he
Did
all
he
right?
hurt himself?
Looks like he is. Boy, he got a terrific jump and came straight in. Landed a little awkwardly on that right shoulder.
This is always the toughest play for an outfielder to make, judging distance and speed coming in. Michael Brantley from the shoe tops.
Interesting that he went to the backhand.
Yeah,
to
it
make
must have
that
had
play.
some spin on it, just going the other way. It's a big first out.
And up comes Miguel Cabrera, 0 for 2 with a walk.
Man, think what he's done, Miggy, against the Indians this year. But how the Indians have really bottled him up past 4 or 5 games. He's hitting .619.
Yeah.
Coming into that weekend series at Detroit against the Indians in 2015. I mean, just video game numbers.
I mean, that's 11 games. He had 26 hits. That's
wow. You're having multi-hit efforts every night.
Single
every
game.
Night. If you had the bases loaded, Al Pawlowski and I talked about this.
4.
Bases loaded, you're putting them on.
Give you a run.
Just Bonds-esque right there.
Yep.
I remember.
Well, especially the way he was swinging it early in the year. It might have been a combination that he was just really locked in.
Mm-hmm.
But
you're not even taking a chance.
No, not that. I mean, the way they pitched him tough, though. Give the Indians pitchers credit because, last 4, now 5 games, they've turned the tables on him.
And I think they've altered their sequencing a little bit, too. A lot more inside, and then they'll extend.
Lonnie Chisenhall makes that catch in right field, 2 down. Well, coming up roughly 1/2 hour after this game ends, Trevor Bauer will go against Randy Wolf in the second half of our doubleheader, and you'll see it all right here on Sports Time Ohio.
Well, it'd be nice to get out early on Randy Wolf.
The ageless Randy Wolf.
Out of retirement. Got a call at home. Hey, you want to come out and pitch in a big league ball game again?
Why not?
It's good work if you can get it.
I detect a little bitterness there.
No bitterness. I like it much better up here with you guys. I do miss those one-out saves, though. Do miss those. Freebies.
Now the 0-2. Swung on and missed. Jeff Manship. Big time with a 1-2-3 seventh inning. Time now for the seventh inning stretch, brought to you by Spitzer Auto World. As we promised earlier, it's Miller time, brought to you by Miller Lite. Chris Johnson has come up twice in this ball game, going the opposite way, getting the Indians on the board in the fifth, and then another big RBI knock in the sixth.
He was down in the count both times. Just really professional at bats, big situations, needing to convert and cash those runners in. So, Chris Johnson, maybe there's a little Spider-Man coming out there. Spidey strength.
Oh, boy.
A lot of ways you could go
Tom
with that one.
Corsolani coming on now for Detroit. The left-hander will take over for Justin Verlander, who went 6 innings today. Verlander charged with 4 runs on 6 hits. Gorzelani, left-hander, will face the top of the order. Jason Kipnis, Francisco Lindor, and Michael Brantley due up.
You think with a couple days off here now in Texas, getting beat, Indians coming in, 4 games back today. Hopefully they finish this one off, and you're 3.5 back going into the second game of this doubleheader. They're creeping.
They put themselves in position to be a factor and to have an opportunity. And to that end, you know, it was brought to light recently that Kevin Cash said down in Tampa he's managing every game in September like it's a playoff game. And I think Terry was asked about sort of that mentality as a manager, and he said, you know, you're trying to win every game. I don't know that you can manage every game like it's a playoff game, but he said, you know, you take each and every game as it comes and you look at it like, if this is a game we can win, we have to do everything we can to win this game. But you also still have to have some common sense to weigh in, because you can't burn your whole bullpen. You can't forsake tomorrow just to get today. You still have to play tomorrow.
And Tito had talked about, and this was early in the season, and wanting to be able to manage, you know, Cody Allen and Brian Shaw, guys that have had a lot of appearances. And from somebody who's been there as far as having to get up every single day, I think he's done a really good job, because managers can get trigger happy, you know, matching up here. And we always talk about the Tito shuffle, but he puts those guys in really good situations. And Mickey Callaway, you know, having communication and a lot of trust with all, you know, those relievers, that's a big reason why their effectiveness has been able to be this consistent.
One ball, 2 strikes to count on Kipnis, who rolls one to short. And he'll throw him out, one away. It's going to bring up Francisco Lindor, who tonight, or today rather, was 1 for 3. He had the huge hit back in the 5th with 2 outs, driving in a couple of runs to give the Indians the lead. Wow. Rockets one to center field. That'll get down and go to the wall. And it's the second time today, Jensen, we've seen an Indians hitter take advantage of goes playing over in left center field.
Absolutely. And another great piece of hitting by Frankie, going the opposite way, takes advantage of a good fastball. This kid he just impresses you more and more each time out. Yeah, showing some veteran savvy here with the taking it into second gear into second base. He's already getting, you know, when you're doing that, you're feeling pretty comfortable. Things are going good. He's just been so impressive. We've run out of, you know, adjectives sometimes to talk about what he's been able to do. His 18th double of the season, but his ability to adapt and his ability to make adjustments in game for a rookie, it's very, very wise beyond his years. I remember we talked, you know, Rick had said this may be the best guy the Indians have called up since Manny Ramirez. I mean, that's very, very high praise. And we all know what Manny did in his tenure year, but boy, tip your hat to Frankie. He's started off in a big, big way.
Low and away to Michael Brantley. Our stat of the game is brought to you by Buick. Talk about special.
Wow.
Since the start of 2014, Brantley, Goldschmidt, McCutchen each have hit 300. Each have 100 or more extra base knocks and 25 or more steals.
How about Paul Goldschmidt with 30 steals? Now, that's a trivia question I would have gotten wrong.
Yeah, because he's a big man.
He's a big guy. Former teammate of mine in 2012 when I played with Arizona. Great guy. Married to a golfer. He said routinely he has to buy dinner. She can out-putt him. I told Goldie, you're not going to win any of those battles, buddy. No skins won there.
I would think he could maybe get her on the driving range, long drive contest.
Yeah.
He can hit him a country mile.
Sure can.
Lefty-lefty matchup as Gorzelani goes to work against Brantley. And he drops a good one in for a strike.
Yep. It's a guy, too, in Gorzelani that former starter, made the transition to a bullpen guy. And how many times have we seen this, Matty, where you left-handers, I mean, they can pitch till they're 50.
Yeah. The 2-1. Oh, he wanted that strike. Gorzelani kind of went into a little knee bend, begging. 3-1.
Got to be right on the edge here. Oof. Yeah, I want that one. I'm giving some body English for that one for sure.
That breaking ball really took off, and he ends up walking him. Let's check in with Andre Knott once again.
You know, guys, we talk about everything about Michael Brantley and how he hits and how he does different things, and we've talked about leadership. I can go back to one of the biggest at-bats of this game, a couple innings ago, when you had Abe Almonte up. He stood down here right where I'm sitting, and he stood next to Gio Urshela, and he pulled him close, and he goes, what pitch would you look for? And then he explained to him why a slider was coming from Verlander and why another slider was coming. And when the walk happened, he looked at it, and he goes, Johnson's going to have to hit something off speed. Look, Michael Brantley can swing the bat with the best of them, but mentally, his mind is unbelievable. And then to see him in a moment where he's like also teaching a young player, it was amazing to watch, and it shows you why he can be so consistent with the bat himself.
And I agree. And really, Matty, this is a guy that has embraced that leadership role. And he's not a guy that's going to go rah-rah and, just getting the whole clubhouse up in cahoots, but having been a former teammate of him, he was a roommate of mine in AAA. The one thing with him, he's consistent every day. You know what you're getting. And how he goes about his business, he's very much a role model. He's a guy you want to pattern your own game after, and he backs it up. He produces in big situations. I mean, if you're Abe Almonte, if you're Gio Urshela, if you're Francisco Lindor, you're a sponge around him because he's been through some experiences already. He has shown what it takes to be a major leaguer every single day. I got to agree with Andre. He's really taken it and run with it.
Gorzelani's 1-0. Hammered it into left field, a base hit. Lindor around third. They're going to wave him home. Moya's throw to the plate is on the money, and he is a dead duck.
My goodness. That was a rocket. He's out by 30 feet.
That really wasn't close, to be honest with you.
Even Frankie's laughing about it. Look at this. Great piece of hitting by Santana. Probably hit it too hard. It gave Moya enough time, but look at this. Laser beam right on the mark. Well, McCann could have just got himself a chair and waited. No chance for Frankie. Great play.
We're going to have a timeout for a pitching change as Brad Ausmus will go back to his bullpen. We had a pinch hitter announced, Jerry Sands, the bat for Lonnie Chisenhall. And so Ausmus will make a corresponding move and go to a right-hander. A timeout here at Progressive Field. Indians still leading it 4-2. Now, it got to Moya pretty quickly. But he got off. He uncorked a perfect throw.
And there was no rush for him at all. I mean, it was just in sync, in stride, real calm, comes out of the fields it cleanly, and my goodness. That's impressive. On the fly, McCann didn't even have to move.
No, Al Albuquerque on for the 61st time this year. Facing Jerry Sands. Runner goes, and a throw down way offline. So Santana swipes it back, give him his 10th stolen base on the year.
He's got some Mr. T jewelry going on there. Those chains. Not weighing him down.
No. Yeah, he's got
Those
the
are
starter
out there,
set.
man. The starter set.
Good block by McCann. Keeps the runners at bay.
This is one guy that does not like pitching here. Al Albuquerque.
He's had some horrible experiences, like dropping. Did he drop the ball, or did he just? No, he just had to flinch the balk.
Right.
That ended the game.
The balk off.
Yeah, he went to start and stopped right in the middle.
Game winner gave up to Brantley. Home run.
I'm thinking of Johnny Cueto, who dropped the ball in the playoffs a couple of years ago.
You're right.
Pitching for Cincinnati, and was that a wild card game, I think, against Pittsburgh?
I think so.
Jerry Sands takes it's a strike, 1-2 the count.
Carlos Santana right there just tied Mike Trout for stolen bases this year.
That's
it's crazy.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
Sands trying to find the hole. Diving stop by Kinsler. Gets up, throws it away. Brantley and Santana both score. Throw to second is in time. The inning is over, but not before the Tribe gets a pair of runs. We'll see how the official scorer decides to score it. I gotta believe it'll be a base hit, an RBI, and then the error allows the second run to score. We shall see.
Indians and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cleveland Indians.
(6-2), the Indians are on top in this ball game as we go to the 8th inning. And Ian Kinsler made a terrific diving stop, but in trying to get rid of it quickly, he threw it over Miguel Cabrera's head.
And Sands slowed down after he got through the bag. McCann very alertly getting the ball and throws a strike to second and retires Sands, but damage done. Another 2 runs. Response runs 2 for the Indians, extending the lead. Now bring it to Brian Shaw.
Yeah, those are 2 huge runs. If Kinsler somehow makes that play and gets him out of the inning, it's still a very tight game. Now you got a little breathing room as Sands stays in the game in right field. Victor Martinez to lead off here in the 8th. And Brian Shaw delivers a strike.
The other thing it does, too, for your bullpen, you got 2 games today. So you have Shaw right now to work the 8th, and if you still have a non-save situation, you may be able to use somebody other than Cody Allen as well.
Chops it foul.
Well, how different a feel for this Detroit team than they were in the first half. The Indians just mentally struggling to play them with that vaunted lineup, and so weird to see. Detroit record-wise is the 2nd worst in the American League now, and they just look like a shell of their former selves.
I tell you what, earlier in the year, Jensen, all they had to do it seemed like was show up, and they were going to beat the Indians.
They really did.
Just
no
contest.
Yeah, they really just kind of walked it out there. And the way their actions were and their nuances, there was no lacking of confidence. They knew that here it was, much like Toronto, when they got on that run after getting Tulowitzki. And when you guys, called up in, Toronto and watched that offense, they're a completely different team at home.
You're not kidding. Look, Detroit has certainly had their fair share of problems this year. As Justin Verlander said recently, this isn't the team that they envisioned, that they put together. But I mentioned Martinez had the knee injury. Verlander had the tricep problem. They lost Joe Nathan after 1 game to Tommy John surgery. Rondon, who was the closer in waiting, had bicep tendonitis, and he missed a couple of months. Then Alex Avila went down for 2 months with a knee injury. Victor Martinez missed a month with a knee injury. Then in July, Miguel Cabrera went down for 6 weeks with a calf injury. Then they had the big 3 trades at the deadline where they sent the 3 guys out, Price, Soria, Cespedes. Then in August, Anibal Sanchez down with a rotator cuff.
A walking wounded. Those are tough to overcome. And, obviously the big one is going to be trading away David Price and Cespedes. But looking at the rotation, you lose Max Scherzer to free agency. Verlander's hurt to start the year. Anibal Sanchez, not the guy he was last year. Had a tough year out of the first half. And that affects the clubhouse. I remember when we traded, CC in 2008, and we traded Cliff Lee in 2009. It really affects you because it's not that you're giving up, but it certainly changes the dynamic. And it's a nonverbal, just indicator of, hey, we're going to go in a different direction. This isn't what we thought it was going to be, and especially when you're trading a Cy Young winner in a very big impact bat. I mean, how happy are the New York Mets? That came together at the very end of the deadline, too.
Swung on and missed. Castellanos down on strikes. 2 away. Let's check in with Al Pulaski. He's got a Mazda game break for us. All right, thanks a lot, Al. With 2 down and the base is empty, Steven Moya, the batter, he's reached all 3 times today. That's going to go out of play down the left side. And the count quickly 0-2.
Who would you rather play in the playoffs, Toronto or New York? In a short series.
New York.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's just the way Toronto's playing, right? And there's a supreme confidence there. I think Donaldson's got to be your MVP.
I don't think there's any way he doesn't win it.
Trout is probably going to be a distant second, and that's saying something. You can't sleep on the Houston Astros, though.
Not at all.
And the way Texas has been playing.
Dallas Keuchel's going to win the Cy Young Award, I think. And he's been unbelievable at home. And his numbers at home are
undefeated
ridiculous.
still at home, right?
15-0 with it.
My goodness.
That's not exactly a well-known great pitcher's park either.
No, it's not.
You don't think of
it.
You know.
Down the lines?
Pitchers don't go there to get fat and happy.
That's right.
But, he's been unbelievable there.
And again, not a guy that has stuff that jumps off the page at you. It's 90-91. He'll cut it. He'll sink it. Really good command.
Officially, he's 13-0 with a 1.49 ERA at home.
At home. Man. And that's a tough place to pitch. Down the lines, I mean, you get a lot of guys in that division that will just yank. You know, who's really loved playing there is Evan Gattis.
Yeah. Well, you think back, Jensen, the Indians went down there, played well. I think they won the season opening series against Houston. Astros came here. They played. I think they won the series here against.
Right.
Strike three called. Shaw paints the corner, and the Tigers go 1-2-3. We'll move to the bottom of the eighth. It's Cleveland 6 and Detroit 2. It's Tire Express and Total Car Care coming up next here on Sports Time Ohio. Al Pulaski will have you covered with highlights. And if you've been bouncing back and forth watching a little football, we'll get you all squared away and ready for Game 2, which comes up about half an hour after we wrap up Game 1. We're in the bottom of the eighth, and Yan Gomes to lead off for Cleveland. And now Albuquerque with a fastball strike.
Does look like Cody Allen is up in the bullpen, so I think Tito going with the approach. Got to win Game 1 no matter what. Don't take any chances.
Meantime, the Indians are one hit away from extending their streak to 14 consecutive home games with at least 10 hits. And they only had one hit through the first 4 innings today.
That's a crazy stat. Because they haven't, I mean, it's not like they're playing just rollover teams right now. I mean, they face some pretty darn good pitching.
Well, the crazy thing about the stat is that you think of the 95 Indians, 97 Indians, all those other great hitting ball clubs that we've seen over the years, and This is the team that's got the longest streak.
You're right.
You wouldn't
be betting on that one.
You wouldn't think that would add up. But they have put it together. Better late than never, as the saying goes. Gomes out on strikes, 1 away. Abraham Almonte, a strikeout victim in the third. He walked and scored in the fifth, and then singled in the sixth. He was showing bunt, but ended up pulling it back.
He had a nice drag bunt. Was it Thursday?
I don't remember what day it was, but yeah, in
I think
Chicago,
it was Thursday.
right? Or was it here?
No, it was here. I think
it
was Thursday, yeah. Really good. A lot of dimensions to his game that I think are starting to be illuminated. And he's one of those guys, too, he's kind of a sleeper. Again, it doesn't jump off the page at you, but he does everything right. He does everything consistently.
And he wraps one back up the middle here. He's got his second hit of the afternoon.
There's your 10th hit.
So the Indians have gone 14 straight home games with 10 hits. Our Pat O'Brien Chevrolet play of the game, go back to last inning, the Jerry Sands base hit. Drove in a run, and then on the error by Kinsler, another run came home to score. Heck of an effort by Kinsler. He really almost robbed him of everything, but he just didn't have a chance to get a throw off, and he probably should have just eaten it.
And those are two critical RBIs right there, as we alluded to. You think about how differently this game is at 4-2. You were facing, the top of the order in the 8th inning there, so a runner gets on, then you got to face Cabrera. One swing could have tied it up, so definitely a backbreaker for the Tigers and much needed extender for the Indians.
Chris Johnson, speaking of backbreaker, he's delivered a couple of those hits today.
Spider-Man. You want to talk about crazy injuries. I know you're going to be in the injury report for that.
Swing and a miss. Throw down, not in time. Kinsler never had the ball in his glove. So a steal for Almonte, his 5th on the year.
Good read. Good first step by Almonte. Picks a perfect time. Again, runner in scoring position. Like watching him play. Really like his energy, too. Especially as a pitcher when you got a guy that can run down balls the way that he can in the gaps. It changes how you pitch, too. It changes your aggressiveness and allows you to expand, the zone a little bit more.
Now we're back to 1925, chasing down that team. The 18 straight games.
Look at this.
Chris Johnson with a base hit to right field. They're playing shallow, so Almonte cannot score. But Indians at first and third with only one out.
Looked like he fisted that one, too. That's a tough pitch on the inside part of the plate. Almost carbon copy of the RBI single that he had.
Yeah, almost had his third straight RBI single to right field.
Right. Look at where this pitch is located. That gets in on him, too. And he does a great job of just putting it the other way. Infield was shaded slightly over to the left side.
And Martinez was playing shallow to begin with, so Almonte had to hold at third. First and third, one out, and Jose Ramirez the batter.
Well, you go from the opening day outfield that the Indians had to now. Lonnie Chisenhall's your right fielder. Abraham Almonte wasn't even here.
That ball's driven into right field. Another base hit. Abraham Almonte scores. Johnson goes to third. Jose Ramirez has a 2-hit afternoon, and it's a 7-2 Indians lead. And that will be it for Al Albuquerque.
Bottom of this lineup still making big contributions today. Jose Ramirez takes advantage. Another pitch up in the zone, laces it into right field. That'll be all for Al Albuquerque.
Well, the Indians have 12 hits. 7 of them belong to the bottom third of the order. We got a timeout for another pitching change. And the new pitcher for the Tigers is left-hander Ian Kroll, making his 28th appearance on the year. He'll be facing Jason Kipnis, who is 0 for 4.
Little nugget for you. Indians are 4 for 4. Runners in scoring position against the Detroit bullpen. We talked about how much they have struggled. Woes continue today.
Kipnis, a bouncer to second base. Kinsler goes to second for 1. Back to first, inning-ending double play. 8 complete. Indians 7, Tigers 2.
Pulowski. Join me between games of the doubleheader for Indians Live. It's brought to you by Conrad's Tire Express and Total Car Care. We'll wrap this one up. We'll look ahead to game 2 of the doubleheader as well. And Matt and Jensen, if you take a look at today's game, boy, Cody Anderson really rebounded nicely after the tough start and had some big hits today, too, from Francisco Lindor and Chris Johnson, guys.
Well, no doubt about it. When you talk about Cody Anderson, This was a huge start. He came out and gave up 3 hits to the first 4 batters, and the Tigers had a quick run. But after that, he held them at bay through 5 2/3 innings, and the bullpen has been dynamite.
Yeah, the changeup for Cody Anderson, we harped on that from the beginning of the day. It really helped keep the Detroit offense, once they got through that first time through the order, really helped keep them in check. And, yeah, you got to give a lot of credit to Lindor. Another huge situation. He comes up clutch.
Yeah. Well, offensively, this Indians club has banged out a dozen hits. Lindor has 2 of them. For the Tigers in the ninth, James McCann, Dixon Machado, and Anthony Goes due up.
And if you look at Cody Anderson, innings 1 and 2, gave up 5 hits. And then innings 3 to 6, only gave up 2.
Cody with a fastball strike to McCann.
Really made good adjustments, was impressed with his location most of today. And this is a lineup, too, as we said, very difficult still to pitch to. He could have really given up, some big runs early, but he didn't break.
Right back to Allen, knocks it down, and the flip is out number 1. Looking back at our keys to the game, brought to you by Wayside Furniture. The Indians did indeed collect their 10 hits in a 14th consecutive home game. Now their longest streak since 1925. Cody Anderson did indeed execute. He struggled a little bit early. But you know what? He's a guy that's he pitches to contact. He's going to give up some hits.
Mm-hmm. Very, very much like Tomlin. But both those guys and their success has been predicated on fastball location and then being able to change speeds with their off-speed stuff. And Tomlin more the breaking ball and Cody Anderson with the changeup. But it's fun to see these guys evolve and really in-game be able to overcome, some tough starts. And again, Cody only gave up 1 run. I mean, could have spiraled out, but the mark of a guy who's really starting to mature at the big league level and make those adjustments at bat to a bat, that was fun to see.
And a fastball belt high, 2-1 to Dixon Machado. It's hit pretty well to right center field. Jerry Sands gliding back, makes the catch on the track, 2 away.
There's that wind for you right there. 20 miles an hour out to the gap. Nice job by Jerry going back. Good route. Stayed with it. Right at the track. 1 out away. This is a big win. You think about coming in, having been off for the last couple days, to be able to rebound offensively. Another great performance. Cody got a great start. Bullpen was pretty good. McAllister struggled a little bit, but Manship, Shaw, now Cody Allen. I don't want to jinx him, but Cleveland bullpen has given up no hits today.
Yeah, the only hiccup was the 3 walks
from
that
McAllister
issued.
Think about how that inning could have gone had Manship not come in and done what he did. Talking about a different ballgame.
2 down in the ninth. A 1-ball, 1-strike count on Anthony Goes. Down and in.
How about the job Cody Allen has done as of late? We talked about Verlander and how his breaking ball was so good. Cody Allen, with the past 3 weeks, it's been knocked down, wipe out. As lethal a combination with his heater and his breaking ball as there is in the American League.
Three balls and a strike as Anthony Goes awaits. A pitch from Cody Allen as he tries to put the wraps on this thing. Game 1 of our doubleheader. Indians up 7-2. The pitch. And he walked him, ball 4. I was just thinking, Cody hasn't had many situations to pitch in like this where there wasn't the pressure of everything sort of riding on each and every pitch. And normally your closer doesn't come in unless it is a save situation,
right,
or it's a situation where you're trying to keep it a tie game, maybe in extras or late. So this is kind of a rare opportunity for him to pitch with a 5-run lead. But he was up. He had already been warming, so Terry figures, well, we've already got him hot. Let's get him in the game and hope it doesn't need a lot of pitches to get through the inning.
Well, these are situations, too. I mean, you hear all the time about closers and non-save situations, how that mentality differs as opposed to, hey, when you're in there, the game's on the line. It does play with you a little bit, but I think Cody's done a good job of approaching, these kinds of situations as if it is indeed a save situation.
But all of a sudden, he's lost the strike zone, and out goes Yan Gomes.
Striking a ground ball.
Reliever do you have to play a little mind game with yourself?
You do.
It's a save situation.
Yeah,
there?
you do. And even, I was lucky enough to play with, one of the better setup men for the Angels and Brendan Donnelly, and he talked about when he was setting up for Troy Percival, when he was one of the gigantic closers in the game, how you just got to make sure that as long as you're shaking hands at the end of the day, you did your job. Not all the outings are going to be pretty. As long as you're shaking hands and you got a W and an S next to your name, you did it.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, you still got to get big league hitters out. It doesn't matter the situation. That's tough to do anyway, but sometimes you got to jack yourself up a little bit more in these situations.
Kinsler lines it into center field. That'll be a base hit. Goes, stops at second. So after the first two are retired, a walk and a knock, up comes Miguel Cabrera. I know I'm trying to remember who I was just talking to about this, but hitter who said that, sometimes we hear guys don't like to hit in 3-0 counts. And I can just tell myself it's 2-0.
Right. When I played in Arizona in 2012, Kirk Gibson was the manager, and we had one day in spring training where he showed how many times they got hits off 3-0 pitches, made a whole video montage of it. He was a big advocate of being able to swing in 3-0 counts. You think about it from a pitching perspective, yes, you're trying to throw a strike, and normally it's going to be a fastball. But I agree with that mindset. You think you're in a 2-0 count. You're looking for one pitch at one spot, looking to drive something.
Cabrera lines it to third, and that'll do it. Jose Ramirez makes the catch, and the Indians win again. They beat the Tigers 7-2. They've won their last 7 in a row at home, 11 of their last 12 here at Progressive Field. Overall, they've won 3 in a row and 12 out of 15. And a day that has been 5 months in the making. The Indians are back to 500
finally
for the first time since April the 10th at 70-70.
What a journey.
It's been a long climb. Now the question is, where do you go from here?
Got to keep going up. And the momentum that Terry Francona has been able to get from this club in the second half, every year he's been here, we're almost seeing a carbon copy of it again.
No doubt about it. Boy, he's got some kind of magic, some wizardry going on when it comes to late in the season, August, September. In particular, this part of the month of September. This is definitely the big push as we go down the stretch. Indians a winner, 7-2. That's the final. We've got final thoughts after this.